Title: She sat on a stranger's lap on a dare. He turned out to be the most feared man in the city. Hook. Opening. 100 words. She was laughing when she walked toward him. She wasn't laughing when she saw his eyes. 3 seconds. That's all it took for Emily Carter to realize the man whose lap she'd just dropped into on a drunken dare wasn't a tourist, wasn't a banker, wasn't anyone she could apologize to and forget. He was something else entirely, and he was already looking at her like he knew her name. If you're watching from anywhere in the world right now, drop a comment and tell me what city you're in. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button, stay until the end, because what happens to Emily over the next few months will change everything you think you know about taking a dare. Let's begin. The bar on Kessler Avenue was the kind of place that pretended to be exclusive, but really just charged $14 for a gin and tonic and dimmed the lights enough that nobody noticed the carpet was threadbare. It sat between a dry cleaner and a shuttered bookstore, and on a Friday night in late September, it was packed shoulder to shoulder with people who had given up on making plans and were now committed to the drift. Emily Carter was 4 drinks in and pretending she wasn't. "You are lying to my face right now," Jenna said, pointing at her with a cocktail straw. "You are lying directly to my face, Em." "I'm not lying. You are. You're doing the thing." "What thing?" "The thing where your left eyebrow goes up and you look like a guilty dog." Emily laughed and pressed her glass against her cheek. The condensation felt good. The bar had that September heaviness to it, the kind that wouldn't let go, where everyone was still dressed for summer but already complaining about the fall. "Fine," she said. "I haven't texted him back, but I'm going to. Probably." "Don't." "I wasn't asking." "Don't text him back, Emily. I'm begging you on behalf of every woman who has ever watched you do this." Across the table, Marcus snorted into his beer. He was Jenna's boyfriend, a patient man with the kind of steady face that made him useful in exactly this sort of conversation. He had the look of someone who'd given up weighing in and had decided to enjoy the show instead. "Daniel is not worth the time it would take to type the word no," Jenna said. Literally, the word no. 2 letters. Don't even give him that. "I wasn't going to text him back tonight," Emily said, which was technically true and technically a lie at the same time. The thing about her ex, about Daniel Vance specifically, was that he had a way of appearing inside her phone like weather. You couldn't predict him and you couldn't prepare for him. And once he was there, the whole evening tilted. 3 messages in the past 2 days. One of them was a photo of a restaurant they used to go to. One of them was the word hey. The third was longer and she hadn't opened it. "Okay, new rule," Jenna said. She slid off her stool. "No Daniel talk, no ex talk. We are at a bar. We are 3 beautiful people who are going to drink too much and make bad decisions. You're literally dating Marcus. Marcus is my bad decision. I already made mine." She kissed him on the temple. "I love you, honey." "Love you," Marcus said, eyes on his phone. "So what we're going to do," Jenna said, turning back to Emily, "is we are going to play the game." "Oh no." "Oh yes. Jenna, I am 31 years old. You are 31 years old, and you have been mopey for 4 months, and we are playing the game." The game had rules that changed every time they played it. Jenna invented them on the spot and enforced them like a referee who had never been told she wasn't actually a referee. Emily had played the game in college, and again at Jenna's bachelorette party, and once on a cruise where she'd almost gotten them kicked off the ship. The game was stupid. The game was embarrassing. The game was also, unfortunately, fun. "The rules," Jenna said, "are as follows. You pick a stranger. I pick a stranger. We each have to do the dare the other one gives us. If you chicken out, you buy drinks for the rest of the night." "I don't have that kind of money." "Then don't chicken out." Marcus looked up from his phone. "Babe, please don't get her arrested." "She won't get arrested. Probably." Emily rolled her eyes and drained the rest of her drink. The gin hit the back of her throat like a small argument. She set the glass down harder than she meant to. "Fine," she said. "Fine. Let's play the stupid game." Jenna clapped her hands together. Her eyes swept the bar the way a cat's eyes swept a room. Not hunting, exactly, but cataloging. She landed somewhere past Emily's shoulder. "Okay," Jenna said, and her voice changed. It got quieter. "Okay, oh my God, Em, I have him." Who? Don't look. Well, now I'm going to look. Don't look. Emily turned her head anyway, slow, casual, the way you do when you're trying to pretend you're not looking. The back corner of the bar had a round booth that curved against the wall, and at the booth sat 3 men. 2 of them looked like the kind of men who stood near other men for a living. Broad shoulders, dark jackets, eyes that didn't move the way normal eyes moved. They were bracketing the 3rd man like bookends. The 3rd man was not looking at anything. He was not looking at his drink, which sat untouched in front of him. He was not looking at his phone. He was sitting with both hands flat on the table, a glass of something amber in front of him, and he was listening to someone across the bar who was not speaking to him. He was not handsome in the bar magazine way. His face was all angles, like someone had drawn him without softening the edges. Black hair cropped short. A suit that fit the way suits fit when someone has been measured for them in a room with a tailor who only takes appointments. He looked, Emily thought, like a photograph of someone, not a person. Like he had been placed there. Absolutely not, Emily said, turning back. Absolutely yes. Jenna, no. Em, yes, look at him. I looked. No, look at him. He looks bored. You would be doing him a kindness. He does not look bored. He looks like he kills people for a living. Jenna burst out laughing. He's probably a hedge fund guy. Hedge fund guys all look like that. They have the little scowl because they're thinking about derivatives. Derivatives? I don't know what derivatives are, Em. That's not the point. Marcus had started watching them now. Which guy? Booth, corner, the one who looks like he owns a yacht. Marcus looked. Marcus looked for longer than Marcus usually looked at anything that wasn't his phone. Then Marcus turned back and said very calmly, Babe, not that guy. Why not? Just not that guy. Why? Because. Marcus paused. He did a small, strange thing with his mouth. Because he looks like he wouldn't think it was funny. That's the whole point, Jenna said. Em, the dare is simple. You walk over. You sit on his lap. You say, and this is important, you say, I think I'm in the right seat. And then you get up and walk away. That's it. 30 seconds. You do it, you win, I buy drinks. I'm not sitting on a stranger's lap, Jenna. You did it at my bachelorette. That was a bachelorette. People expect it at bachelorettes. It's like contractually included. Em? No. Em. Jenna, no. Emily Carter. Jenna leaned in. Her voice got low and serious in the way that only drunk people could manage to get low and serious. How long has it been since you did something that wasn't safe? Emily didn't answer. How long, Jenna said, has it been since you did a single thing that made you feel like you were still alive, and not just processing Daniel's garbage for the 600th time? Okay, that's not fair. It's not fair because it's true. Go sit on the scary rich man's lap. Say your one line, walk away. You'll laugh about it in a week. Emily looked back at the booth. The man had not moved. His 2 companions had started talking to each other across him. He was still staring at nothing. She was going to regret this. She knew it the way you know you're going to regret a text the second before you send it. There was a little bright window of awareness right before you did the dumb thing where you could see exactly how the dumb thing was going to play out. And you did it anyway because the seeing it didn't actually stop you. If I get thrown out of this bar, she said, you're paying for my Uber. Deal. And you're buying drinks all night. Deal. And you're telling my mother. Emily, I am not telling your... But Emily was already standing up. The bar swayed a little. Not the bar, actually. The bar was fine. Emily was swaying. She put her hand on the stool to steady herself, and then she took a breath and smoothed the front of her dress, which was black and short and had felt like a good idea 3 hours ago. Walking across the bar, she felt every drink she had drunk. Her legs did the job they were supposed to do, but she could feel the slight delay between the wanting and the doing. That delay was the entire reason she was doing this, she thought. On another night, with fewer drinks in her, she would have just laughed and refused, and Jenna would have picked a less horrible target. On another night, on a normal night, she would not be walking toward a man who made her stomach feel a little cold. She was 3 feet from the booth before one of the bookends noticed her. He was the one on the left. Shaved head, a small scar through his eyebrow that looked old. He saw her coming and his hand moved. It didn't go anywhere important. It didn't reach for anything. It just moved, the way a cat's tail moved when a cat noticed something new in the room. The man in the middle, the one she was there for, didn't look up. The bookend on the left said something quiet, 2 syllables, in a language Emily didn't recognize, not Spanish, not French, something with a shape to it. The man in the middle finally looked up. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look annoyed. He looked the way a man looked when he had already considered the possibility that a woman was about to walk up to his booth and was now simply seeing which version of that possibility had arrived. His eyes were not kind. They were not unkind either. They were a color Emily couldn't quite name, somewhere between gray and the color of something very cold. She had meant to say her line with a flourish. She had rehearsed it, walking over. The line was going to be light and flirty, and she was going to laugh in the middle of it, and then she was going to walk away before anyone could respond, and the whole thing would be a funny story. She didn't say the line, not at first. She did the other part. She sat down. She sat down right on his lap, the way Jenna had dared her to, and the second her weight settled on his thighs, she understood in a deep and specific way that she had made a mistake. He didn't react. That was the thing. He didn't flinch. He didn't grab her. He didn't shove her off. He didn't laugh, and he didn't scowl, and he didn't do any of the things a normal man did when a strange woman sat on his lap in a bar on a Friday night. He just stopped, the way a machine stops. He had been breathing at one rate, and now he was breathing at another rate, and his hands, which had been flat on the table, were still flat on the table. He did not put them on her. He did not put them anywhere. "I think," Emily said, and her voice came out smaller than she wanted, "I think I'm in the right seat." The bookend on the left had gone very still. The bookend on the right, who had been looking at his phone this whole time, slowly set his phone face down on the table. He did it without a sound. The man whose lap Emily was sitting on, she could feel, through the fabric of her dress, that he was warmer than she expected, like his body ran hot, tilted his head. Just a little, just enough to see her face. "Are you?" he said. His voice was low and even and had no accent she could place, except that every word sat in its own small, separate space, as if he didn't waste any of them. "Am I what?" Emily said. "In the right seat." She swallowed. Because," he said, "I don't know you." "No, I don't. I don't know you either." "Then it seems unlikely that I'm in the right seat." "That you're in the right seat." She tried to laugh. It came out wrong. It came out like a cough that was trying to be a laugh and hadn't quite committed. She should have gotten up. That was the plan. Sit, line, up, gone. Instead, she sat there because something about the way he was looking at her had made her legs forget which direction up was. He was not angry. That was the strange thing. If he had been angry, she could have left. Anger was a door you could walk through. This wasn't anger. This was attention. He was paying attention to her the way a surgeon paid attention to a wound, and it was making her skin feel strange. "It's a dare," she said. "I assumed. My friend. Over there. It's a thing we do. It's a stupid thing we do. I'm so sorry." "Which friend?" She hesitated. She didn't know why she hesitated. She had every right to point at Jenna. Jenna had earned it. But something in the way he'd said which friend, flat, neutral, the way you'd ask for a file number, made her not want to give him a name. "The blonde," she said. "By the bar." He didn't look over. He didn't turn his head. He just kept looking at her, and the bookend on the left glanced past her shoulder, saw Jenna, and registered the information with the smallest possible nod. "You should probably," Emily said, "you should probably let me up. I'm going to get up now. I'm not stopping you." She realized, with a small twist of embarrassment, that he wasn't. His hands hadn't moved. He hadn't put a single finger on her. She was the one sitting there, still, frozen, because his eyes were holding her in place more effectively than any hand could have. She stood up. Her knees wobbled. She stepped back from the booth and almost knocked a drink off a neighboring table. A man at that table said something irritated, and she didn't hear him. "I'm so sorry," she said again. The man in the booth said, "Emily." She had not told him her name. She had not told him her name, and she was 3 steps from the booth, and he had said it, quiet, the way you said something to yourself when you were memorizing it. She turned around, slow. What did you just say? But he wasn't looking at her anymore. He had picked up his glass, the untouched amber drink, and he was holding it in front of his face the way a man held a drink when he didn't want to answer a question. The bookend on the left was looking at her now. The bookend on the left had a face like a closed door. Emily walked away. She walked back across the bar on legs that did not feel like hers. She walked back to Jenna, who was bouncing in her seat with a kind of electric glee, and she grabbed her purse off the stool without sitting down. "Oh my God," Jenna whispered. "Oh my God, you did it! What did he say? What did he do?" "We're leaving." "What?" "No, we just—" "Jenna, we're leaving. Now." Marcus looked up. Marcus saw Emily's face. Marcus said, "Yeah, okay, let's go." "Babe, what?" "Let's go, Jen." They left. They paid fast. They left fast. And they stood on the sidewalk outside while Jenna tried to hail an Uber, and Emily stood pressed against the brick wall of the bar, breathing like she'd run somewhere. The air was cool, September air with the edge of the season in it. A bus went by on Kessler and lit them all up white for a second, and then went dark. "Em, what happened? Was he a jerk? Did he say something to you?" "He said my name." "What?" "He said my name, Jenna. I didn't tell him my name." Jenna stopped looking at her phone. "That's not— Maybe you told him and you don't remember." "I didn't tell him." "Em, you had like 4 drinks. Jenna." Okay. Maybe he heard me say it. Across the bar, I was probably yelling. I yell a lot." Emily nodded. That was possible. That had to be it. Jenna yelled. Jenna yelled in bars. Jenna had probably yelled, "Emily Carter, do not chicken out at some point in the evening," because that was the sort of thing Jenna did. And the man had caught her name in the air and filed it away because men like that filed things away. That was what she told herself on the ride home. She told it to herself all the way down Kessler and through the tunnel and up the hill to her building. She told it to herself in the elevator. She told it to herself brushing her teeth. It almost worked. Check. She did not sleep well. She lay on her back with the window cracked and listened to the apartment across the courtyard run its dryer. The dryer had a rhythm like a bad heart. She watched the ceiling and thought about his hands on the table. She thought about how he had not put them on her. She had been on his lap for, 15 seconds? 20? And he had not touched her. And there was something about that, something about the restraint of it that was worse than if he had. Somewhere around 3 a.m., she stopped pretending to sleep and got up and poured a glass of water and looked at her phone. Daniel had sent another message. "Please at least tell me you got the photo." She did not answer it. She turned the phone face down on the counter and went back to bed, and finally, sometime near dawn, she slept. The next morning, she was late to work. Emily worked at a small design studio on the 4th floor of a building that had once been a hat factory. The studio did branding for restaurants and wine labels and the occasional boutique hotel, and the owner, a woman named Carol, who wore exclusively linen, had a strict policy against anyone explaining their lateness. "I don't want to know," Carol said when Emily came in at 9:47. "I truly don't. Coffee's still warm, go." Emily dropped her bag at her desk and peeled off her jacket and opened her laptop, and it took her the better part of an hour to realize she had not actually read a single sentence on the screen. Her mind kept going back to the booth, to his hands, to the sound of her own name in his mouth. Emily. Not a question, a statement, like he had looked up her file. She shook her head and tried to focus on a wine label. The client was a vineyard in Sonoma called Red Kite, and they wanted something bold but not aggressive, which Carol had translated privately as, "They don't know what they want." Emily had been pushing a concept around a kite made of grape leaves. It was fine. It wasn't great. She stared at it for 40 minutes and then stared out the window. Around 11, her phone buzzed. It was a text from a number she didn't know. "I apologize for last night." She read it twice. Her first thought was Daniel, which was stupid. Daniel's number she knew by heart, even after blocking him, unblocking him, and blocking him again. Her second thought was a wrong number. Her third thought made her stop breathing for a second. She stared at the message. Then, slow, careful, she typed back. "Who is this?" The 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. "The man whose lap you sat on." Her stomach did something cold. How did you get this number? A pause. A mutual acquaintance. You shouldn't worry about it. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I made you uncomfortable. That wasn't my intention. She read it 3 times. She couldn't tell if he was apologizing or threatening her. The words said one thing. The fact that he had her number said another. How do you know my name? A longer pause this time. Your friend was loud. Emily almost laughed. That was what she'd told herself. That was the explanation she'd used to fall asleep. It was the mundane answer, the boring answer, the answer that made the world make sense again. Jenna yelled. He had heard. He had remembered. What about the phone number? The same friend, more or less. People in this city are easier to find than you'd think. I'm going to tell you something, Emily, and I want you to know I mean it. If this is making you uncomfortable, tell me to stop, and I will never contact you again. I won't be at that bar. I won't be anywhere you are. You won't hear from me. She stared at the message. It was the last thing she had expected. She had expected a come on. She had expected some smooth line. She had expected the kind of man who had sat so still while a stranger dropped into his lap would, when given a phone, be the kind of man who used it like a weapon. Instead, he was handing her the off switch. She put the phone down. She picked it up. She put it down again. She picked it up. What do you want? A long pause. Dinner? 1. You picked the place. You picked the time. If you don't show, I won't contact you again. Why? Another pause. Longer this time. Because I have been in a lot of rooms, Emily, and I rarely notice anyone in them. I noticed you. I'd like to know why. She closed the phone. You okay? Carol said from across the studio. Fine. I'm fine. You look like you just got served. I'm fine, Carol. Okay. Carol went back to her own screen. The kite looks fine, by the way. Ship it. They're not going to know the difference. Emily went back to the kite. She moved a single line on the kite 1/2 inch to the left. She sat and stared at it. She thought about her grandmother, who had used to say that the trouble with smart women was they thought interesting and good were the same word. Her grandmother had been a very wise woman. Her grandmother had also married a bad man twice. At 3 p.m., she picked up her phone. She wrote, Gennaro's on 8th, 7:30, tomorrow. She stared at it for a full minute. Her thumb hovered over the send button. She sent it. That evening, she told Jenna. She told Jenna over the phone, pacing her living room, wine glass in one hand. She told Jenna the whole thing, the text, the apology, the dinner, and Jenna was silent for so long that Emily thought the call had dropped. Jen? I'm here. Say something. Em, I love you. Okay? And I'm going to say something you're not going to like. Okay? I don't think you should go. Emily stopped pacing. You dared me to sit on his lap. I dared you to sit on his lap for 30 seconds. I didn't dare you to go to dinner with him. You just said this morning I needed to get out and do things that weren't safe. I meant bad karaoke. I meant eat a weird thing off a menu. I didn't mean go have dinner with a man who knows your phone number after 5 minutes. He said he got it from a mutual acquaintance. Em, you don't have any mutual acquaintances with a man like that. A man like what, Jenna? There was another long pause. Marcus recognized him. Emily's wine glass stopped halfway to her mouth. What do you mean Marcus recognized him? He didn't say anything at the bar because he didn't want to scare you, but on the ride home he told me. He's seen that man in photographs. On the news, okay? His name is Alejandro Duca. I don't know how to say this. I don't even really know what any of it means. But Marcus was pretty clear. He said, that guy is not somebody who goes to dinner. He said, that guy is somebody other people get sent to. Emily sat down on the edge of her couch. What does that mean? It means I don't know, Em. Marcus works at a bank. Marcus knows things about people with money. Marcus said this guy is not a banker. Marcus said the word he used was connected. That was the word. Connected. That was the word. Emily stared at the wine glass. The wine inside it was very, very dark. I already texted him, she said. I already told him where to meet me. Then untext him. Cancel. Say you changed your mind. He said if I don't show, he won't contact me again. Great, don't show. Jen, please, please, I started this. I dared you to do the thing. I'm telling you right now as your best friend in the world, please don't go to this dinner. Emily didn't answer. She sat on the couch and she looked at the wall and she thought about the way his hands had stayed flat on the table. She thought about the way he had said, I'm not stopping you, and the way he had said, tell me to stop and I will, and the way he had built, with both of those sentences, a door and handed her the key. Every bad man she had ever been with in her life, including Daniel, especially Daniel, had at some point told her what she could and could not do. This man had not. Not yet, she thought. The word sat in her mind like a splinter. Not yet. I'm going to go, she said. I'm going to go. I'm going to pick the place. I'm going to pick the time. I'm going to sit across a table from him in a public restaurant, and I'm going to decide for myself. Emily, if I don't like him, if I don't like a single thing he says, I will get up and walk out. Jen, I swear to you, I'm not 15. I'm not going to do anything stupid. Jenna was quiet for a long time. Take Marcus's number, she finally said. I have Marcus's number. Take it again. Memorize it. If anything weird happens, you call Marcus, not me, because I will freeze. Marcus won't freeze. Marcus is very calm. Marcus is very calm, promise me. I promise. Wear something with pockets. Put your phone in your pocket. Don't put it in your purse. Okay. And M. Yeah, if you're going to do this, if you're really going to do this. Jenna took a long breath. Then go in with your eyes open. Don't let him be charming. Men like that are charming. That's the whole thing. That's their whole job. Don't fall for it. I won't. You will. I won't, Jen. You will, Em. That's the other thing I know about you. You fall for it every time. Emily didn't have an answer for that. They said goodnight. She set the phone face down on the coffee table. She finished the glass of wine. She poured another one. She didn't finish that one. Around 11, her phone buzzed. It was him again. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. That was all. She read it. She did not answer. She set the phone back down. Outside her window, the city was doing its night thing. Cabs, someone laughing on the street, a bass line from a passing car that thudded once and was gone. The September air came in cool through the crack in the window. Somewhere out there, she thought, Alejandro Duca was sitting in a room she could not imagine. He had her name. He had her number. He had, she suspected, more than that. An address, maybe, the name of her studio, the name of her mother, the name of Daniel. All of it sitting in whatever mental file he had opened for her the moment she'd stood up from his lap and walked away. And he had, for some reason, chosen to ask instead of take. That was the part, she realized, that was going to make her go to the dinner. Not the danger, not the intrigue, not the fact that he was, whatever he was, connected. That stupid word. The fact that he had asked. She thought about Daniel's messages, all three of them, piling up in her phone like unopened mail. She thought about every time Daniel had not asked, every time Daniel had just shown up, at her office, at her apartment, at the bar she liked, every time grinning like, look at me, look at the effort, look how much I want you, and every time she had felt the walls of the room get a little closer together. She thought about a man sitting still with his hands flat on a table while a stranger sat on his lap, and how he had not reached for her, and how, when he had finally spoken, he had asked her a question. She closed the window. She turned off the light. She went to bed. And somewhere, in a building she had never seen, in a room she could not picture, at a table where a man was quietly working through the last piece of a night she was not part of, Alejandro Duca put her name into a sentence, one more time, to himself. The way you said the name of a new country you had decided, for reasons you could not yet explain, you were going to visit. She woke up before the alarm and stared at the ceiling for a long time. The light in her bedroom was the pale, uncommitted gray of a Saturday morning in the city, and for a minute she let herself pretend it was just a Saturday. A normal one. The kind of Saturday where she would do laundry and walk to the corner for coffee and spend an hour pushing her kite design around on a screen while the radiator clanked. That Saturday was still available to her. She could text him. She could cancel. She could say her mother was sick, or she had caught something, or she was, in fact, a coward, and he would, if he meant what he said, disappear. She did not text him. She got up instead. She made coffee. She drank it standing at the counter while she scrolled her phone and tried not to look at his messages. And then she looked at his messages anyway, the way you pressed on a bruise to see if it still hurt. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. 7 words. Nothing in them. Nothing to hold on to. She read them 6 times, and then she put the phone in her pocket so she would stop reading them. The day stretched out in front of her, too long. She cleaned her apartment. She folded laundry she had folded 2 days ago. She got in the shower at 11 and got out at 11:40 and stood in a towel in front of the closet for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what a woman wore to a dinner with a man whose hand she was already afraid of. Not afraid exactly. That was the wrong word. She had turned it over and over in her head all morning, and she could not find the right word. He had not frightened her in the bar. He had done something more specific than that. He had made her aware of herself. The way he had looked at her, that specific attention, had made her conscious of her hands in a way she had not been conscious of her hands in years. She pulled out a dress. She put it back. She pulled out another. She put that one back too. In the end, she put on jeans and a dark green sweater and low boots, which was a statement, she decided. And the statement was, I am not dressing for you. The statement was also, she admitted to herself while she stood at the mirror, but I am still dressing. At 4 o'clock, Marcus called her. Hey, he said. His voice was the same voice it always was, the calm voice, the voice of a man who had never once in his life raised it. Jenna told me you're doing this. I'm doing it. Okay. Are you going to try to talk me out of it? No. Good. I want to tell you something first, though. Emily sat down on the edge of the bed. Okay. I've only seen this guy in 2 places, Marcus said. A Bloomberg article from like 3 years ago, and then a photo on the front page of the business section once, standing behind another guy. He's not the guy you Google. He's the guy standing behind the guy you Google. You understand what I'm saying? Not really, Marcus. There are people in this city, Em, who move a lot of money around, and everybody knows their names, and then there are people who make it possible for those first people to move a lot of money around, and nobody knows their names. The second kind of person is more important than the first kind. That's what he is. That's what I think he is, anyway. I don't know for sure. That's not illegal, Marcus, moving money. I didn't say it was illegal. You implied it. I didn't imply anything. I told Jenna he was connected, and I shouldn't have used that word because it's a word from a movie. I don't know what he does. I'm telling you, I don't know what he does. That's what I'm trying to say. If I knew, I could tell you. I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the whole point. A guy whose business you can't figure out from the outside is a guy whose business is not meant to be figured out from the outside. Emily rubbed her eyes. Marcus, are you telling me not to go? I'm telling you to pay attention. I'm telling you to watch his hands. I'm telling you if at any point in the evening something feels wrong, you get up and you walk out the front door, not the back, and you call me, and I'll come get you. I don't care where it is. I'll come get you. Marcus. What? Why are you being so nice to me? A pause. Because Jenna loves you, he said. And because I was raised by a woman who got her heart broken by a man she shouldn't have said yes to, and I don't like watching it happen to other women. Emily didn't answer for a second. Okay, she said. Thank you. Call me if anything happens. Anything, Em. Even a weird feeling. Call me. I will. You won't, but try. They hung up. She put on a little lipstick at 6. She put on more at 6:15. She took some of it off at 6:20 because she thought she looked like she was trying. And then she put some back on at 6:25 because she decided not caring was its own kind of trying, and at least this way, she was being honest. She was out the door at 6:45 and on the sidewalk at 6:47, and at that point her legs were not shaking yet, so that was something. Gennaro's on 8th was her choice for 3 reasons. 1, it was loud. A woman in trouble could scream at Gennaro's and be heard. 2, it was the kind of place where everyone watched everyone else. A restaurant full of financial district regulars and second dates and people on their phones, and a man could not do anything to a woman at Gennaro's without half the room noticing. 3, she had been there before, with Daniel, and she wanted to sit in a place where she had once sat with a man who had made her small, and see if, sitting across from a different kind of man, she would feel small again. She walked the 8 blocks because she needed the time. It was cool out, and the city smelled like bread and exhaust, and the specific wet leaf smell that meant the season had turned. A man on the corner was selling umbrellas he did not have the weather for. A woman came out of a shop with a little gray dog on a leash, and the dog looked at Emily and Emily looked back at it, and for a second she wanted, very badly, to pick up the dog and take it home with her and forget about the whole evening. She did not. She got to Gennaro's at 7:26. She stood across the street for a minute, watching the windows. The restaurant glowed gold through the glass. People moved inside it, the slow choreography of diners and waiters, and she could not see a man sitting alone. She went in at 7:28. The hostess was a young woman with a clipboard who looked at Emily and smiled the professional smile of a woman who had been on her feet for 4 hours. "Two," Emily said. I'm not sure if he's here yet. Duca?" The hostess's face did something. It was very small. It was the tiniest adjustment, a single muscle near the corner of her mouth moving, and then she was all smile again. "Right this way, Miss Carter." Emily followed her. She noticed as she walked through the restaurant that the hostess did not take her to the loud middle of the dining room where she had imagined they would sit. She took her past the loud middle and past the quieter edge, and through a doorway Emily had never noticed, into a smaller room at the back with only 6 tables. At one of those tables, Alejandro Duca was already sitting. He had his back to the wall. He was facing the door. He was alone. No bookends, not in this room. And he was wearing a dark sweater, not a suit, which surprised her because she had not imagined him in anything that wasn't built like armor. He stood up when he saw her. That surprised her too. It was a small thing. It was the kind of thing her grandfather had done a long time ago, a thing most men her age had forgotten to do. He did not make a production of it. He just rose once and waited. "Emily," he said. "Alejandro." His eyes moved just the smallest bit at the sound of his own name, as if he had not been sure she knew it. The hostess pulled out her chair. Emily sat. She put her purse on the chair next to her and her phone in her sweater pocket the way Jenna had told her to, and she folded her hands in her lap because if she put them on the table, she was going to start fidgeting with the silverware. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I almost didn't." "I know." "How do you know?" He looked at her. He had the look of a man who was deciding how much to say. "Because," he said, "most people don't." The hostess was still standing at the end of the table. He glanced at her, and she, without a word, handed Emily a menu and left. "She knew you," Emily said. "She knows the name, not me. I have never been in this restaurant before." "Then how does she know the name?" He smiled. It was a small smile. It was the first expression she had seen on his face that was a real expression, and it was surprisingly warm. And she hated, a little, that it was warm. "When you texted me the name of the restaurant," he said, "I called them. I reserved this room. The name was put on the reservation. She knows the reservation." "You reserved the whole room." "I reserved the whole room." "Why?" "Because I assumed you would want to talk, and I have found in my experience that it is very hard to talk in a room full of people who can hear you. I picked this restaurant because it's loud." "I know." "You know?" "I assumed. You assumed I picked a loud restaurant on purpose." "I assumed you picked a loud restaurant because you didn't know who I was and you wanted to be surrounded by other people. It was a reasonable thing for you to do. I would have done the same." Emily stared at him. "That is," she said, "that is the weirdest sentence anyone has ever said to me." He laughed. It was a short laugh, almost startled, as if laughter had taken him by surprise. He had not planned on it. He covered his mouth with his knuckles and looked at the table for a second like he was trying to get his face back. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For laughing. That's the weirdest thing anyone has apologized for in my whole life. I don't laugh often." Clearly, they were quiet for a second. The waiter came in, a small man with a towel over his arm, and Alejandro ordered a bottle of something Emily didn't recognize and asked if she wanted anything else. She said no. The waiter disappeared. "Okay," Emily said when he was gone. "I'm going to ask you something, and you're going to answer me honestly, or I'm going to leave right now. Okay? What do you do?" He looked at her for a long moment. His gray eyes did not move from hers. "I manage risk," he said. "That's not an answer." "It is an answer. You don't like the answer." "Manage risk for who?" "For people." "For what kind of people?" "For the kind of people who have risk that needs to be managed." You're doing the thing, Emily said. The thing where you answer a question without answering it. I'm going to leave. Don't leave. Then tell me. He was quiet. I'm going to tell you, he finally said, what I can tell you. And what I can tell you is this. I am not a criminal. I have never been charged with a crime. I have never been arrested. I don't do anything that would put my name in a newspaper. The things I do are boring, Emily. They are extremely boring. I sit in rooms with lawyers and I move pieces of paper around. Sometimes the paper is worth a lot of money. Sometimes the paper is worth nothing. My job is to know the difference. That is still not an answer. It is the answer I can give you. Why can't you give me more of an answer? He looked at the table. He put his hand flat on the tablecloth, the way he had put his hands flat on the table at the bar, and she noticed again that he did this in moments when he was thinking. It was a tell. Everyone had one. This was his. When he was not sure what to do with himself, his hands went flat. Because, he said, the people I work for value discretion. And I have built my entire adult life on the idea that I will not be the person who breaks their discretion. Not for anyone. Not for the police. Not for a girlfriend. Not for my own mother when she was still alive. Not for you. Your mother is dead. She is. When? A long time ago. Emily looked at him. She looked at his hands, flat on the table, and the tendons in the back of his wrists, and the cuff of his sweater, which was not expensive the way she had expected his sweater to be expensive. It was just a sweater, a man's dark sweater. It looked soft. Alejandro. Yes. If I keep seeing you, am I going to get hurt? He did not answer for a long time. I don't know, he finally said. That is not what I wanted you to say. I know. I wanted you to say no. If I said no, I'd be lying. I have told you I'm not going to lie to you. I told you that in the text message, if you read it that way. I meant it. I'd rather tell you something true that scares you than something false that keeps you here. Why would I get hurt? Because people who spend time with me get noticed. Not always. Not even often. But sometimes. And the people who notice them are not people I can always control. But you manage risk. Yes. So you could manage this. A small pause. I could try. She almost got up. She almost stood up right then and took her purse and walked out of the back room and out of the restaurant and back down 8th Street and never looked at her phone again. That was the smart thing. That was the thing Marcus had called her to tell her to do. That was the thing Jenna had begged her to do. That was the thing the tiny rational voice in her head, the voice that had kept her alive this long, was screaming at her to do. But she didn't get up. She didn't get up because of his face. He was looking at her like he expected her to leave. There was no performance in it. There was no pleading in it. There was no manipulation in it. He had told her what he had told her, knowing it would probably end the evening, and now he was simply waiting to see whether it had. He was not trying to hold her there. He was not throwing out last-minute lines to change her mind. He was giving her the time to make her decision, and she realized he was going to accept whatever she decided. She had dated a liar for 2.5 years. She had dated a man who, if she had ever asked him what he did for a living, would have told her a story that ended with him being the hero. She had dated a man who, when she finally caught him in the lie, had told her that of course he had lied because the truth would have upset her. He had said it like he had done her a favor. He had said it like the lie had been an act of love. The man in front of her was telling her the worst possible version of his own life and waiting to see if she could live with it. Okay, she said. Okay? I'm not leaving. Yet. Don't make me regret it. I won't try. You won't try? I won't try to make you regret it. I can't promise you won't. I can promise I'll try the other direction. Stop talking like that. Like what? Like a man writing a note. Say normal things to me. He looked at her, and for the second time that night, he almost smiled. Okay, he said. The waiter came back with the wine. He poured a little for Alejandro, and Alejandro did the thing men like him did with wine. The small nod, the no-comment taste, and then the waiter poured for both of them. They ordered food Emily did not fully register. She thought she ordered fish. She thought he ordered a steak. The waiter went away again. Tell me about yourself, she said. The normal version? Not the risk management version. The normal version. Yes, I was born in this country. My parents weren't. We lived in 3 different cities before I was 12. I was a quiet child. I was not popular. I liked math. My mother wanted me to be a doctor. I wanted to be a history professor. Neither of those things happened. I met a man when I was 19 who told me I was good at seeing when other people were lying, and he offered me a job, and I took the job, and one job became another job. Eventually, I stopped taking new jobs and started picking them. That's the least revealing autobiography I've ever heard. You asked for normal. That's normal. That's not normal. It's mine. How old are you? 41. You look younger. I sleep a lot. Do you? No. She laughed in spite of herself. Why aren't you married? A small, careful pause. I was going to be once, he said. That didn't work out. Because of what you do. Partly. What was the other part? She was scared of me. And she was right to be. I don't know, I think she was. I was different then. I had a temper when I was younger. I don't anymore. Why not? Because I worked on it. You just decided to work on it. Yes. And that worked. Mostly. What's left of it? Not much. Alejandro. Yes. Have you ever hurt anyone? The smallest pause. Define hurt. Don't do that. I'm trying to be honest with you. Then answer the question. He looked at her for a long time. I have hurt people, he said. I don't hurt people anymore. I have not hurt anyone in a very long time. I was not proud of the people I hurt when I hurt them. I was younger. I made choices I wouldn't make now. I am not going to lie to you and tell you I am a man who has never raised his hand, but the person sitting across from you is not the person who raised it. Emily's stomach did something she didn't like. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked. Most men would lie. I'm not most men. Every man who has ever said that to me was the most man I've ever met. I know. You know? I have heard men say that to women. I have heard them say it, and I have watched the women nod. I don't want you to nod. I want you to hear me. I am telling you that if you decide to stand up right now and leave, I will not stop you and I will not follow you. And I am telling you that if you decide to stay, the honesty will continue to be bad for a while. And then it will get better, because the oldest bad things will be behind us. But you have to choose it. I'm not asking you to. She took a drink of the wine. It was good. She did not know what it was. She did not want to know what it was, because if she knew what it was, he would be a man who knew wine, and she did not want him to be a man who knew wine. She wanted him to be a man who was winging it, like her. What would you have done, she said, if I hadn't sat on your lap? Nothing. Nothing. I would have finished my drink. I would have gone back to my hotel. I don't live in the city. Where do you live? Not far. A couple hours. I have a house. A couple hours in which direction? North. You're not going to tell me. Not tonight. Not tonight. Not until I know that telling you wouldn't be a problem for either of us. A problem. For the people who might ask you later. Who might ask me later. He looked at her. The gray in his eyes was the gray of a stone in a river. I'm going to ask you, he said, to trust that some of the questions you have don't need answers yet. I'm going to ask you to be patient with me. I don't know you. You don't know me. If we keep doing this, we will know each other. The answers will come then. Not now. Not at the first dinner. You think there will be a second dinner? I don't know. You don't know. I don't. I am not going to assume anything. I have told you more about myself in 40 minutes than I have told anyone in 10 years. That was what I came here to do. Whether you want another dinner after this is entirely up to you. Emily looked down at her hands. She thought about Daniel. She didn't want to think about Daniel. Daniel had no business being in her head at this table. But he was anyway, because Daniel, in their first real conversation, had told her everything she wanted to hear. He had said he was divorced when he was separated. He had said he had a degree he did not have. He had said he had a dog, which was one of the sentences that had made her fall for him. And the dog had turned out to be his sister's dog. And the sister, she had later learned, did not speak to him. Alejandro had just told her he had hit people. Alejandro had just told her he could not tell her where he lived. Alejandro had just told her that being near him might get her noticed by the kind of people who noticing was bad. And there was, somewhere in her chest, a small, stubborn, terrible little relief, because at least he had told her. "Okay," she said, "let's eat." They ate. They ate, and they talked about smaller things, and the evening, against all her expectations, got lighter. He asked about her work, and she told him about the kite and the vineyard and Carol in her linen, and he listened like a man who had never heard of kites or vineyards or linen. He asked questions. They were not smooth questions. They were not charming questions. They were the questions of a man who was not used to asking questions and was figuring out how to ask them. And some of them came out a little stiff, a little stilted, and she caught herself liking him more for the stiffness. A man who did not know how to ask about her work was a man who had not practiced on 100 other women. She asked him about books. He read, it turned out, a lot of history. He had not, after all, become a history professor, but he read like one. He talked about a book on the fall of Byzantium that she had seen on the table in a bookstore and not picked up. He talked about it with a quiet pleasure she had not expected, the small pleasure of a man who did not often get to talk about things he liked. At one point, describing a siege, he used his hands to draw the walls of the city in the air above the tablecloth, and she laughed. And he looked at his own hands like they had betrayed him, and he put them down again. "You like this," she said. "Like what? Talking about this?" "Yes." "Why don't you?" "Who would I talk about it with?" It was not self-pity. It was not fishing. It was a simple question, answered. He had built a life in which there were very few people he could talk to about the fall of Byzantium. She filed that away. At some point, he asked her about her family. She told him about her mother in Scranton, and her father who was not dead but who might as well have been, and her sister who had 2 kids and a husband who sold insurance. She told him about her grandmother, who had been her favorite person in the world, and who had died 4 years ago in a hospital that smelled like pine cleaner. She did not mean to talk about her grandmother. It came out before she could stop it. He listened. He did not interrupt. He did not offer sympathy in the way men sometimes did when they wanted credit for their sympathy. He just listened, and at the end he said, "She sounds like someone I would have liked. You would have hated her. She would have been suspicious of you. Then I would have respected her. She married 2 bad men. Then she would have been suspicious of me for specific reasons." Emily laughed. She caught herself laughing. She caught herself not having thought about Daniel for 40 minutes. She caught herself leaning her elbows on the table and not minding that she was leaning her elbows on the table, and she thought, this is how it starts. This is exactly how it starts. This is the part of the movie right before something goes wrong. At 10:15, he asked for the check. He paid. He paid cash, which she noticed, which would normally have seemed strange, and tonight did not seem strange at all, because of course he paid cash. Of course the whole evening was a thing he would like not to exist on a credit card statement somewhere. He left a tip that was too big. He stood up and held her jacket for her, the way her grandfather used to hold her grandmother's jacket, and she let him. They walked out of Gennaro's together and stood on the sidewalk. The night had gotten colder. The umbrella man was gone. A black car was at the curb about 10 yards down, and a man she had not seen at dinner was leaning against it, and she did not have to ask who he was. "Can I put you in a cab?" Alejandro said. "I'll walk." "It's 11 blocks." "It's 8. 11. I live 8 blocks from here." "I know you live 8 blocks from here. I'm not offering to take you to where you live. I'm offering to take you somewhere close to where you live so that I don't know exactly where you live." She stared at him. "That," she said, "is the most considerate, creepy thing anyone has ever said to me. I can call a cab for you instead." "Call a cab." He raised a hand. A cab appeared. She had no idea where it had come from. It was like he had summoned it out of the street. She got in. She rolled down the window. He was standing on the sidewalk in his dark sweater with his hands in his pockets, and he did not look cold, and he did not look tired, and he did not look like a man who had just told her things he had never told anyone. "Alejandro." "Yes." "If I told you I didn't want to see you again, then I wouldn't contact you." "You keep saying that. I keep meaning it." She looked at him through the open window. "I'll call you," she said. "Okay. I don't know when. Whenever. It might not be for a while." "I'll be here." The cab pulled away. She sat in the back with her hands folded in her lap, and she watched the city slide past the window and she tried to find the part of herself that should have been furious or frightened or at least smart. She could not find it. She found instead the small and stupid thing that had been sitting in her chest all night, which was that she had enjoyed herself. She had enjoyed the evening more than she had enjoyed any evening in a very long time. A man had sat across from her and answered her questions and listened to her talk about a grandmother she had not been able to talk about with Daniel, not even once. And that man was not, by his own admission, a safe man. She got out of the cab 3 blocks from her apartment. She paid the driver. She walked the rest of the way with her phone in her hand and her thumb on the screen, and she did not call anyone. Not Jenna, not Marcus, not her mother, not anybody. In her apartment, she turned on 1 lamp. She did not turn on any others. She sat on the couch in the half-dark and looked at her phone, and there were no messages from him, which was what she had expected and what she had wanted, and it was also, somehow, a tiny disappointment. At 11:40, her phone buzzed. It was not him. It was Daniel. "I saw you at Gennaro's tonight, Emily's whole body went cold. Who was the guy? She stared at the screen. Her hands started to shake. A little, not from fear, exactly, but from the old, familiar feeling of Daniel suddenly being inside the evening, of Daniel having been watching, of Daniel having decided she owed him an explanation. "You don't answer me for 2 weeks, and then I see you with some guy at Gennaro's. Who was that? I'm just asking him." She did not answer. She sat with the phone in her hand, and she thought about how the back room at Gennaro's had been visible from the main room, through that doorway, if you were standing at the right angle. She thought about how Daniel had taken her to Gennaro's twice. She thought about how Daniel had sent her a photo of a restaurant 2 days ago, and she had not opened it, and she wondered, with a small and growing nausea, whether the photo had been of Gennaro's. She opened the photo. It was Gennaro's. It was a photograph of the front of Gennaro's taken from across the street, yesterday, in daylight, with the caption, "Remember this place?" She set the phone down on the coffee table, face up, screen glowing. She did not sleep for a long time. She lay awake and stared at the ceiling, and somewhere in her chest, under the fear of Daniel and the confusion about Alejandro and the low, dull headache of too much wine, a new feeling was beginning to form, slow, unwelcome, specific. It was the feeling of a woman standing between 2 men and understanding for the first time that one of them had just told her every bad thing about himself at a dinner table. And the other one, the one who had smiled at her own engagement party 2 years ago, had been, all along, the one watching her from across the street. She slept maybe 3 hours, and she knew she had slept them, because when she woke up, the sky was the dirty pink of a Sunday morning, and her mouth tasted like the inside of a coin purse. The phone was still on the coffee table, face up, the screen long gone dark. She did not reach for it right away. She lay on the couch, where she had apparently drifted off at some point around 4, and she watched the ceiling, and she did a thing she had not done in a long time, which was to try to be very honest with herself for a full minute without flinching. The honest thing was this. Daniel had not been her boyfriend for 4 months. Daniel had been her boyfriend for 2.5 years, and he had not been her boyfriend for 4 months. And the difference between those 2 statements, she had thought up until last night, was that she had walked away from him. She had changed the locks. She had blocked the number twice. She had, with Jenna sitting on her bathroom floor drinking a seltzer and reading her texts out loud, composed the final message that said, "Please do not contact me again," and she had pressed send, and she had believed, free. She had not been free. She had been standing in a room she thought she had left, and the door had been open the whole time. She sat up. She picked up the phone. There were 4 more messages from him, sent between midnight and 3 a.m., each one more naked than the last. I just want to talk. I know you're mad. That guy was older than you by a lot. Are you okay, please? She did not answer them. She turned the phone off. She turned it off all the way, the full power down, and she watched the little apple fade and go black, and she set the dead phone on the kitchen counter, and she went to take a shower. Under the water, she did the thing she had been avoiding doing since the night before. She thought about the photograph. Daniel had sent her a photo of Gennaro's 2 days ago. 2 days ago was Thursday. On Thursday, Emily had not yet spoken to Alejandro Duca. On Thursday, she had not yet been to any bar on Kessler Avenue with Jenna. On Thursday, Gennaro's had been nothing to her but a restaurant where she had once eaten veal with a man she was about to dump. which meant Daniel had not sent her the photograph because of Alejandro. Daniel had been sending her photographs of places he had been watching her go to, long before Alejandro, long before any of this. The hot water ran out on her, and she didn't notice for a full minute. She stood there in the cooling spray with her forehead against the tile, and she tried to remember all the places she had been in the last month. The dry cleaner on Lexington, the bar on Kessler, her studio, the bodega on the corner, her mother's apartment once, for dinner, the coffee shop with the orange awning where she had sat with a book on a Saturday 3 weekends ago. Had any of them felt strange at the time? Had she, at any of them, had the small, creeping feeling that a person has when a person is being watched? She had not. That was the part that made her cold, standing there in the water. She had not felt anything. Daniel had been good at it. Daniel had been, she was realizing now, very good at it, for a very long time. And the reason she had never caught him was because he had never wanted her to catch him. She got out of the shower. She put on a robe. She turned the phone back on. 7 missed calls from Jenna and 1 from Marcus. She called Jenna back. "Oh, thank God," Jenna said, without a hello. "Oh, thank God. Where have you been? I called you 8 times. I was about to send Marcus over there." I turned my phone off. "You turned your phone?" "Em, I thought something happened to you." "Something did happen to me." Silence. "What?" "Not the dinner. The dinner was... I don't know what the dinner was. I'm going to need 2 weeks to figure out what the dinner was. Something else." "What's something else?" Emily sat down on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinet. It was cold tile. It felt good. She told Jenna about the text messages. She told her about the photograph. She told her about what the photograph had been 2 days before she had ever walked into Gennaro's with anyone. Jenna was quiet. "Em." "Yeah." "Em, he's been following you." "I know." "He's been following you for weeks, maybe longer." "Em." "I know, Jen." "You need to call the police." "And tell them what?" "That he's stalking you." "He sent me a picture of a restaurant. He sent me 4 text messages. He didn't threaten me. They're not going to do anything." "That's not true." "It is true. You know it is." Jenna didn't answer right away. That was how Emily knew she knew it was true. "Okay," Jenna said finally. Okay. What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Em, I don't know yet. You can stay here. You can come stay with us. Marcus will drive over right now and get you." "I don't need Marcus to drive over right now and get me. Daniel is not going to kick my door down, Jen. He doesn't do that. He does the other thing. The other thing. The thing where he makes you think you're crazy. Em, I am asking you to come stay with me. I'm going to be okay for today. I promise. I'll call you tonight. If anything happens, I'll call you tonight. Promise." "I promise." They hung up. Emily sat on the kitchen floor for a while longer, and then she got up and made coffee, and she did not think about Alejandro, or she tried not to, because the problem with thinking about Alejandro right now was that Alejandro made her feel safer, and she was not in the mood to let a man she had known for 48 hours make her feel safer, because she had made that exact mistake with Daniel, and look at her now. She thought about Alejandro anyway. She thought about the sentence, "I have hurt people. I don't hurt people anymore." She thought about it in a new way, in the morning light, with her ex-boyfriend's photographs of restaurants burning inside her phone. A thing she had heard, at dinner, as a warning, she now found herself hearing, in her kitchen, as a description of a skill. She picked up the phone. She typed, "Are you around?" She did not sign it. She did not explain. She just sent it. She did not know why. She told herself as she sent it that she was only asking because she wanted someone else in the city to know what was happening, and Jenna was going to cry, and Marcus was going to give her the safe, sensible answer, and she wanted, for once, the other kind of answer. He responded in under 30 seconds. "I can be." "Where?" "Just want to talk on the phone." "Okay. Give me 5. He called her at 12 past 11. "Hi," she said. "What's up?" "I don't know why I'm calling you." "Okay." I'm not going to tell you anything big. I just wanted to, I don't know, hear someone." "That's fine." "Is it?" "Yes." She was quiet for a second. She walked to the window. The street below her was doing its Sunday. People with dogs, people with paper cups of coffee, a kid on a scooter he was going to grow out of in a month. The city looked the way a city looked when it did not know what had been happening inside a woman's phone. "I have an ex-boyfriend," she said. "Okay." "His name is Daniel Vance." A very small pause. "Okay," Alejandro said. "He saw us last night." "At the restaurant?" "Yes." "I assumed someone might." "You assumed." "I assumed that when a woman walks into a place like Gennaro's with me, someone notices. That is usually someone I work with. Sometimes it is someone who works for someone I work with. I did not expect, honestly, an ex-boyfriend, but I would be lying if I told you I had not thought about how many sets of eyes might be in that room. He's been watching me for a while, Alejandro. Before last night. Yes. How long? I don't know. At least 2 days. Probably longer. He sent me a photograph of the restaurant 2 days ago." Silence on the line. "Alejandro, I'm here. Say something. Is he physically dangerous?" "I don't know." "Has he ever put his hands on you?" She almost said no. The reflex was old and fast, and she had to swallow it back. "Once," she said. "Not hard." Define not hard. "He grabbed my arm. He didn't hit me. Hard enough to leave a mark." "Yes." A longer silence. "Okay," he said. His voice had not changed. That was the first thing she noticed. It was the same voice it had been at dinner, the same flat, even voice. But there was something inside it now, behind it, the way there was sometimes a train behind a closed door. You didn't hear the train itself. You heard that the door was not empty. "Emily." "Yes." "I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly, and then I am going to ask you to make a decision, okay?" "Okay." "Do you want me to handle this?" "Handle this." "Do you want me to make it stop?" She closed her eyes. "I don't know what that means," she said. "That sentence is exactly the sentence I have been afraid of you saying." "I know. I don't want anyone to get hurt." "Nobody is going to get hurt. I am not asking you for permission to hurt him. I am asking you for permission to make this stop." "How?" "I'm going to tell you, and then you are going to decide." "Okay. I'm going to find out who he is and what he wants. Not from you, from other places. That is the thing I know how to do. I am going to know, by the end of the day, what his life looks like, where he works, who he owes money to, who owes him money, whether anyone has ever filed a complaint against him, what his driver's license photo looks like. I am going to know these things. That is the first part." "Okay. Then, with what I know, I am going to go to him, and I am going to have a conversation with him. The conversation will not involve me touching him. It will not involve anyone touching him. I am not going to threaten him. I am going to explain to him, very clearly, using specific information about his life, that he is going to stop contacting you. He is going to stop walking down streets you walk down. He is going to stop eating in restaurants you eat in. He is going to stop, Emily. And he is going to stop because I am going to make him understand that the cost of not stopping is higher than the cost of stopping. You're going to threaten him. I'm going to give him information and let him threaten himself." She sat down at the kitchen table. "Why?" she said. "Why would you do that?" "Because I told you last night I didn't want you to get hurt. You met me 2 days ago." "I know." "You don't know me." "I know." This is insane. This is what my mother told me not to do. This is the thing where a man swoops in and solves your problem, and then you owe him forever. You won't owe me. Everyone says that. I know, I'm telling you anyway. Alejandro. Yes. I don't want to owe you. You won't. I'm going to ask you why again, and I want a real answer. A longer pause. She could hear him breathing. It was a slow breath, the kind of breath a man took when he was, for once in his life, trying to figure out what he actually meant. Because, he said, I have sat with you once in a restaurant, and I have been sat on by you once in a bar, and those are the 2 most honest evenings I have had in a decade. Because you asked me questions at dinner that nobody has asked me in a very long time, And when I answered them badly, you did not pretend I had answered them well. Because when I told you I had hurt people, you did not leave. Because I would like to have another dinner with you, and a third one, and a fourth one. And I cannot do any of that if there is a man with a phone full of photographs of places you have been. I'm not doing it for you. I am doing it for me. You are not going to owe me. I am buying myself the privilege of sitting across from you again. That is the full truth. You asked for a real answer. That is the real answer. Emily put her hand over her face. That is, she said, the most alarmingly specific thing anyone has ever said to me. I know. You know. Yes. Alejandro. Yes. Okay. Okay. Do the first part. Find out who he is. Just the first part. Don't do the conversation part. Not yet. I want to think about that one. Okay? And I want you to tell me, when you find things, I want you to tell me what you find. Not some of it. All of it. Even if you think it's going to upset me. Okay? Even if it's things that are going to make me feel stupid. Emily. What? A man following you around in secret is not a thing that will make you stupid. It will make him sick. You are allowed to be angry. You are not allowed to be ashamed. She sat at the table and she breathed for a second. Okay, she said again, quieter. I'll call you tonight. Okay? If he messages you today, don't respond. Don't block him. Let him keep messaging. I want to know what he writes. Why don't you want me to block him? Because if you block him, he will come to your apartment. Her mouth went dry. He doesn't know where I live. A small pause. Emily. He doesn't, Alejandro. I moved after we broke up. I didn't tell him the new address. I was careful about that. My mother has the address. Jenna has the address. Nobody else. He has the address. You don't know that. He has been watching you for weeks. He has the address. She did not answer. Don't block him, Alejandro said. Don't respond. Just let the phone do its thing. I'll call you tonight. They hung up. She sat at the table for a long time. The coffee had gone cold in the mug in front of her. The Sunday light in the kitchen was thin and golden, and it made the whole apartment look like it belonged to someone else. Someone who had Sundays like other people's Sundays. Someone who was not sitting at a table with both her hands flat on the wood in the specific way a man had put his hands flat on a table 2 nights ago, because she had picked up the habit already without meaning to. And she did not know yet whether that was going to turn out to be a small detail or a much larger one. Her phone buzzed. Daniel. Why are you ignoring me? I saw you get into a cab last night. Where did you go? I went by your place this morning. The lights were off. She read them twice. She did not respond. She took the phone and she walked it into her bedroom and she put it on her nightstand, face down, and she closed the bedroom door, and then she sat in the living room and she did not move for a while. Around 2, she called her mother. She did not tell her mother about Daniel. She did not tell her mother about Alejandro. She called her mother, and she asked her mother about the new neighbor upstairs, who her mother did not like. And she listened to her mother talk about the new neighbor for 18 minutes, and the 18 minutes of her mother complaining about a woman who had, apparently, a dog that barked too much was the most normal 18 minutes Emily had had since she had walked into the bar on Kessler. When she hung up, her mother said, "You sound tired, honey." "I am tired, Mom." "Are you eating?" "I'm eating." "Call me in the week." "I will." She called Jenna at 4. "I'm okay," she said before Jenna could ask anything. "I'm home. I'm fine." I talked to him." "Daniel?" "No, the other one." A long pause. "And?" "He's going to find out who Daniel is." He said he wasn't going to touch him. You believed him." "I did actually, yeah." Jen, listen to me. I am not going to do anything I can't walk back. Okay, I told him to just find out. I didn't tell him to confront him. I didn't tell him to do anything. I told him to find out. And what if what he finds out is scary? And what if knowing what he finds out means you're in whatever it is now? What if you wake up tomorrow and some guy is dead in a parking lot? Jen, no, I'm saying it. That is a thing that has to be said. That is a thing I am allowed to say. He's not going to kill Daniel. You don't know that. I know that. How? Because he told me. Em? Jen. Em, listen to yourself. Listen to the sentence you just said. I know that because he told me. Em, do you hear yourself? Emily did not answer. I love you, Jenna said. I love you, I love you, I love you. I am saying this with love. You're about to make a series of decisions that are going to put you in a place you don't come back from. I know how it sounds. It sounds like something's wrong with you, Em. Jen, it does. I'm sorry. It does. They hung up without saying goodbye. Emily sat on the couch, and for a long minute she felt the specific flavor of loneliness that only came from knowing that the person who loved her most was, for the first time ever, afraid of her. Alejandro called at 9:30. He did not open with a greeting. His name is Daniel Arthur Vance, he said. He is 34. He grew up in Ohio. He works at a company called Meridian Capital, which is a firm that does mid-market mergers. He is not senior. He is not as senior as he probably told you he was. He makes about half of what you think he makes. He has one sister in Columbus who he does not speak to. He has no criminal record. He has one civil suit filed against him 4 years ago by a woman named Caroline Reyes, which was settled out of court with a non-disclosure. The suit was for harassment. Emily sat down on the edge of the bed. Caroline Reyes, she said. Do you know her? I know. I know the name. I think we met once at a party he took me to early on. She was there. He told me she was a woman he used to work with. He was weird about her. I never thought about it. Weird how? He didn't want to stand near her. Okay. Alejandro. Yes. Is she okay? She lives in New Jersey. She is married. She has 2 children. She is fine, as far as I can tell from the outside. That is all I can tell you tonight. I am not going to call her. Good. There is something else. Emily closed her eyes. Okay. He has been to your building. Which building? The building you live in now. Not the old one, the one you moved to after you broke up with him. She could not speak for a second. How do you know? Because there is a camera on the awning of the dry cleaner across the street from your building. It belongs to the dry cleaner. It is not a camera anyone would expect to matter. A friend of mine looked at the footage. It did not take him very long. Your ex-boyfriend has been on the sidewalk across from your building 11 times in the last 6 weeks. He has not gone in. He has stood across the street. The longest he has stood there is 1 hour and 40 minutes. The shortest is 14 minutes. He does it at night. Emily put her hand over her mouth. He doesn't do anything. He just stands there. He just stands there. You're sure? I am sure. Okay. Emily. I'm here. Are you there? What? At your apartment. Right now. Yes. Get a bag. What? Get a bag. Pack a couple of days. I'm going to send someone to pick you up. Alejandro, I'm not going to ask you to come to my house. I'm not going to ask you to come anywhere near me. You're going to go to a hotel. Tonight. I'm going to pay for the room because I do not want your name on the reservation. The hotel is 4 blocks from your apartment. It is a normal hotel. You will check in under a different name. You will not leave the hotel tonight. You will not go back to your apartment tonight. Tomorrow, we will figure out what to do next. Tonight, we are getting you out of that apartment. I can't just leave my apartment. Yes, you can. I have work tomorrow. I have. You can go to work tomorrow from the hotel. You will take a cab. You will come back to the hotel tomorrow night. You will not go back to the apartment until I can tell you it is safe to go back to the apartment. That is how this is going to work. This is insane. This is a man who has been standing across the street from your building at 1 in the morning watching the lights in your windows. She did not have anything to say to that. Emily? I'm packing. Good. Alejandro? Yes. Who's picking me up? A woman. Her name is Nadia. She works for me sometimes. She will be downstairs in 20 minutes. She will knock on your door. She will say, Alejandro sent me. She will not say anything else. She will have a scar on her left cheek, just under the eye, about 1 inch long. That is how you know it is her. Do not open the door to anyone who does not match that description. Okay. Emily. Yes. You are doing the right thing. It doesn't feel like the right thing. It is the right thing. Feelings catch up. She packed a bag, jeans, 2 sweaters, underwear, her laptop, her work shoes, her toothbrush. She packed fast. She packed without thinking, because thinking was going to stop her, and stopping was not anymore an option she was allowing herself. In the middle of packing, her phone buzzed again. Daniel. I saw that woman going into your building. Emily froze. She read the message twice. She went to the window. She did not touch the curtains. She pulled the edge of one aside with one finger, and she looked out onto the street. Across the street, in the little alcove between the dry cleaner and the shuttered bookstore, there was a figure. It was hard to tell. The streetlight was yellow, and the figure was mostly in the dark. He had his hands in the pockets of a dark jacket. He was standing very still. He was looking up at her window. She stepped back from the curtain so fast she hit the wall. The phone buzzed again. Who is that woman, Em? You have to tell me. I'm trying to help you. A knock at the door. 3 short knocks, firm, not loud. Then a woman's voice, muffled. Alejandro sent me. Emily walked to the door. She put her eye to the peephole. The woman in the hallway was in her 40s, maybe early 50s. Dark hair pulled back, a black jacket over dark clothes. She was holding a small duffel bag of her own. She was not looking at the peephole. She was looking down the hall, the way a person looked down the hall when a person was paying attention to something that was not the peephole. Emily could see, in the fisheye, a thin, pale line on her left cheek under the eye, about an inch long. Emily opened the door. Nadia, Miss Carter. He's across the street. I know. You saw him. I saw him. He saw me. That is what we wanted. Let's go. We walk out? We walk out the back. There is a back. Every building has a back. Grab your bag. Emily grabbed her bag. Her hands were not quite steady. She locked her door. She followed Nadia down the hallway, past the elevator, to a door at the end of the hallway she had never opened. A door with a little red sign on it. Nadia pushed the bar on the door, and they went down a set of concrete stairs. And 2 floors down, they came out into a service corridor that smelled like bleach and garbage. And 50 feet down the corridor, there was another door that opened onto an alley. And in the alley, there was a car with its engine already running. The driver did not speak. He did not turn around. He just drove. Nadia sat in the back with Emily. She did not talk. She looked at her phone and she typed something and she looked out the window and she did not try to make Emily feel better, which Emily, in some small functioning corner of herself, recognized as the single most comforting thing any human being had done for her all weekend. The hotel was on a side street Emily had walked past 100 times and never looked at. Nadia went in first. Emily followed 5 minutes later, as instructed. The name on the reservation was not Emily's and not Nadia's. It was a name Emily had never heard before. She did not ask. The woman at the front desk did not look twice at her. The key card was handed across the counter in a small paper envelope, and Emily took it, and she went upstairs and she found the room. And the room was on the 7th floor, and the window faced an alley and not a street. And when she looked out of it, she could not see her own building, and that, she thought, was probably not an accident either. She sat down on the edge of the bed. She did not cry. She thought she was going to, and she did not. She sat very still for a long time, and her phone buzzed twice more in her pocket, and she did not look at it, and eventually the buzzing stopped. At 11:50, her phone buzzed one more time. It was a different number, a number with no name. You're safe. Sleep. She did not answer. She set the phone on the nightstand. She lay down on top of the covers with her shoes still on, and she stared at the ceiling of a hotel room she had not booked, in a neighborhood she did not live in, under a name that was not hers, and she understood, with the calm that came when there were no decisions left to make for the day, that she had crossed into a new life. She did not know yet whether it was going to be a shorter life or a longer one. She did not know yet whether the man who had told her to sleep was going to turn out to be the man he said he was. She did not know yet what Daniel was going to do tomorrow, when he stood across from her building and watched lights come on in windows that were not hers anymore. She only knew that the old life, the life where she went to a bar on a Friday and took a dare, was not coming back. She closed her eyes. She slept. She woke at 6:14 with her shoes still on and the taste of hotel carpet in the back of her throat, and for a second she could not remember where she was. She remembered in order Gennaro's, the phone call, the knock on the door, the alley, the key card, She remembered it the way you remember having been to a hospital, not as a narrative, as a sequence of small cold rooms. The hotel room was not a small cold room. It was actually nicer than she had expected. There was a kettle on the dresser. There was a little leather folder on the desk with a menu inside it. There were 2 bottles of water on the nightstand, one of which she opened and drank in a single long swallow that made her teeth ache. Her phone had a single message on it, sent at 5:47 a.m., from the same anonymous number. Nadia will be in the lobby at 7. She will take you to work. She will wait. She will take you back at 6. Do not take any other car. Do not take the subway. I'll call tonight. She read it twice. She did not answer. She went into the bathroom, and she washed her face, and she looked in the mirror at a woman who looked older than she had looked on Friday. And she thought, not unkindly, okay, all right, we live here now. She went to work. She went to work because she did not know what else to do with her body between 7 a.m. and the moment the next decision would be asked of her. And sitting in a hotel room waiting for a phone to ring felt like the kind of thing that would unravel her. She got into Nadia's car at 7:04. Nadia did not make small talk. She drove the way a person drives when driving is a professional skill, smoothly, without comment, and she dropped Emily off a block from the studio instead of at the door, which Emily understood without being told. Carol was already in when Emily came upstairs at 7:48. Carol took one look at her and said, "Are you sick, Em?" "No." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "Because you look sick." "I didn't sleep." "Okay." Carol peered at her over her glasses. "Do you want to go home?" "No." "Do you want coffee?" "Yes." "Then make yourself coffee and sit down." Emily made herself coffee and sat down, and she opened her laptop and she looked at the kite for the Sonoma Vineyard. And for the first time in 4 days, the kite looked exactly like what it was, which was a kite. And for 45 minutes, she was a person working on a kite. And she did not think about Daniel at all. And she did not think about Alejandro very much. And when she left her desk to refill her mug at 10, she had moved 3 lines in one color, and the kite was, against all odds, slightly better. It did not last. At 10:40, her phone lit up on the desk. It was Daniel. I went by your apartment again last night. There were no lights on 'em. Are you home? I just want to know you're safe. I'm worried about you. Please." She did not answer. She flipped the phone face down. She went back to the kite. The kite did not get any better for the next hour. At 12:15, her phone buzzed again, and when she turned it over this time, it was a different number. Local area code. Not saved. She stared at it for a full 3 seconds before she answered. "This is Emily." "Miss Carter." A woman's voice. Older, not unfriendly. "I'm calling from Meridian Capital. I work in the Human Resources Department here. I need to confirm a few things with you. It shouldn't take long. Is this a good time?" "Meridian?" "Yes, ma'am." "I don't work at Meridian." "No, I understand, ma'am. This is regarding a complaint that has been filed with our office. Your name came up. We are required to follow up." "A complaint?" "Yes, ma'am. Against one of our employees, a Mr. Daniel Vance." Emily's hand went cold around the phone. "What is the complaint?" "I can't share the specifics, ma'am. I can share that this is part of a pattern we have been tracking internally for some time. Your name was provided to us as someone who might have relevant knowledge. You are under no obligation to speak to me. You can decline this call and we will not contact you again. But I'm asking you, as a courtesy, whether you would be willing to talk to a member of our internal investigations team in the next day or two. Your statement would be confidential." Emily stood up from her desk. She walked to the window. She walked back. "Who gave you my name?" "I can't share that, ma'am." Did someone named Alejandro Duca give you my name?" There was a small, very precise pause on the other end. "I am not at liberty to share the source, ma'am." "Okay. Would you like to speak to someone?" I'll call you back." "Of course. Can I have the name of the person I'd be speaking to?" "Of course. Her name is Rachel Klein. I'll text you the number." The woman hung up. 30 seconds later, a text arrived with the number. The number did not match the number the woman had called from, which was, Emily registered distantly, a professional detail, the kind of detail she would not have noticed last week. Emily sat at her desk and she looked at the kite on her screen and she understood slowly what Alejandro had done. He had not told Daniel anything. He had not confronted Daniel. He had done something both more civilized and more devastating. He had picked up the thread of the old lawsuit, Caroline Reyes, 4 years ago, the non-disclosure, and he had pulled on it in some way she could not see, and somebody at Daniel's company, somebody whose job was to protect Meridian Capital from things like lawsuits, was now reopening a file that Daniel had believed was closed. He had not needed to threaten Daniel. He had just needed to remind Daniel's employer that Daniel existed in a specific way and let Meridian Capital apply the pressure on its own behalf. She did not know whether to be impressed or sick. She was, it turned out, a little of both. She texted Alejandro, "Did you do this?" She did not specify. She did not need to. 5 minutes later, "I gave some people some information they already had access to. I did not tell them what to do with it. I will tell you more tonight. Are you okay? I don't know, I'll come to the hotel tonight." She stared at the message. He had not said, "Can I?" He had said, "I will." It was the first time in the whole week that he had made a decision in a sentence without handing her the veto. She noticed it. She did not correct it. She was not sure in that moment whether she wanted to. Okay, the day got longer. Carol, who noticed everything and said nothing, put a sandwich on Emily's desk at 1 without comment and walked away. The sandwich was turkey. Emily ate half of it. She fixed 3 colors on the kite. She answered 2 emails. She did not look at her phone except to not look at it. At 6, she walked a block in the other direction from the studio, as instructed, and Nadia's car was there. She got in. They drove a route that was not a straight line. Nadia did not explain. They got to the hotel at 6:39, and Nadia walked her in through a side entrance and up to the 7th floor, and then Nadia walked away and Emily was alone in the hallway outside her room. She opened the door. There was a bag inside the door. A paper bag. It had not been there when she left. She picked it up slowly. Inside the bag was a sandwich, a small bottle of sparkling water, a bar of dark chocolate, and a paperback copy of the book on the fall of Byzantium he had talked about at dinner. There was a note. The note said, in small, careful handwriting, "Eat something, I'll be there at 8." She sat down on the bed and she looked at the paperback for a long time. It had a used book sticker on the inside cover. $4. It had been read before. There were small pencil marks in the margins. Not his, someone else's. Someone who had owned it before him. He had bought her a used book with somebody else's pencil marks in it, and that, she thought, was both the weirdest and the most tender thing a man had ever given her, and she could not explain to herself why. She ate the sandwich. She drank the water. She did not open the chocolate. She showered and put on fresh clothes, the other sweater she had packed, and at 7:58 there was a knock at the door, 2 short and 1 long, and she did not need to ask who it was. Alejandro was in the dark sweater again, a different one, or the same one, she could not tell. He was holding a small paper cup of coffee and another paper cup that she realized was for her. "Hi," he said. "Hi. Can I come in?" Yes, he came in. He did not sit. He stood near the window and he drank from his cup and he waited, the way he waited. And she noticed, for the first time consciously, that the waiting was a thing he did on purpose. He did not fill silences. He gave them to her. "Tell me what you did," she said. "Sit down." "I'm sitting." She sat on the edge of the bed. He took the chair at the desk and turned it to face her. He set the coffee on the desk and put his hands on his knees, and she noticed again the tendons on the back of his wrists. He had the hands of a man who had done something physical for a living, a long time ago, before he had done whatever he did now. "I made 1 phone call," he said. "I called a man I have known for a long time. He works, not for Meridian, but with a firm that audits Meridian's human resources practices. That firm has a contractual obligation, when specific types of information come to its attention, to relay that information to Meridian's compliance officer. The specific type of information I gave my friend was a publicly available fact and a pattern of dates. The dates were a record of the 11 times your ex-boyfriend stood across the street from your building in the last 6 weeks. Some of those times overlapped with hours during which he was logged into his work email on his laptop. That is the kind of thing that interests a compliance officer at a firm like Meridian, because it suggests that an employee is doing personal business during billable hours, which has tax implications, which has liability implications, which has insurance implications. My friend made his report. He did not mention me. He did not mention you. Meridian's compliance officer opened a file. That officer, going through the file, found the old Caroline Reyes matter, which had been settled but not deleted. That officer made a different phone call to somebody else inside Meridian, and that person decided on their own that there was enough smoke to look into the fire. The call you got this afternoon is the first part of that internal investigation. That is all I did. I did not tell anyone to investigate him. I started a small fire in a specific corner of a building, and the people in that building did what people in buildings like that always do, which is to put out fires very carefully. Emily stared at him. That is, she said, the most bureaucratic explanation of a hit I have ever heard in my life. It is not a hit. It is absolutely a hit. You did not pull a trigger. You burned his employer. I burned a small amount of his employer. His employer will fire him or it will not fire him. If it fires him, it will be because of things he has done. If it does not fire him, it will be because there were not enough things he had done. Either way, Emily, his employer now knows about his pattern of standing across the street from your building. His employer will, at minimum, instruct him to stop. If he does not stop, his employer will fire him. His employer knows about Caroline Reyes. His employer is not going to tolerate a second Caroline Reyes. There is no version of the next few weeks in which Daniel Vance keeps his job and keeps standing across the street from your building. That is what I bought. What did you promise them? Nothing. Alejandro? Nothing. The information was free. That is part of why I did it this way. You do not owe anyone anything. I do not owe anyone anything. Nobody will ever come to you or to me and ask us for a favor because of this. That was the point of doing it this way. Why is he still texting me then? Because he hasn't been talked to yet. He will be talked to tomorrow morning. When he is talked to tomorrow morning, the conversation will include an instruction to have no further contact with you. His employer has the ability to include that instruction. After that instruction is given, if he violates it, he will be fired on the spot. He will know this. He is not a stupid man. He will stop. And if he doesn't, then we will talk about the second part of what I offered you on the phone. The conversation part. Yes. I don't want the conversation part. I know. I don't want the conversation part, Alejandro. I heard you. She took the coffee off the desk. She held it. She did not drink from it. It was warm through the paper. Alejandro. Yes. How many times have you done this to somebody? A pause. To somebody like Daniel? Yes. A longer pause. I have used that specific technique, the audit path, the compliance officer, 4 times in 20 years. Once was for a woman I worked for. Once was for a friend's sister. Once was for a man who a friend's sister. Once was for a man who had, himself, been followed home. And now for you. 4. You aren't doing this for a living. I am not doing this for a living. I have told you what I do for a living to the extent I can. This is not that. This is the personal version of a skill that has professional applications. You are splitting hairs. I am splitting the exact hair I am splitting because it is the hair that keeps you from owing anyone anything. She looked down at the cup. She looked back up at him. I'm scared of you, she said. I know. You should not be so calm when I say that. I am calm because you are telling the truth. I would rather you tell me you are scared of me than lie about it. I have had women lie about it. I did not enjoy it. You have had women. I did not mean it like that. I know. I meant there have been people in my life who were afraid of me and who pretended they were not. It went badly, both times, for both of us. I would rather you be honest. I will accept the cost of the honesty. Emily breathed out. Daniel told me yesterday, she said, that he went by my apartment. He told me last night that there were no lights on. He told me this morning that he went by again. He is sending me a message every few hours. I don't know what he's going to do when the phone call comes tomorrow. He's going to be very angry. Angry at me. Angry at everyone. Angry at his boss. Angry at his HR department. Angry at you. Angry at whoever he decides is responsible. He will spend 2 days trying to figure out who did this to him. He will not be able to. There is nothing he can find. He will land eventually on the idea that you did it. Not in a literal sense. In the sense that this happened because you left him. Great. He will want to have a conversation with you. He will want it very badly. He will find a way to have one. That is what we are going to prepare for. We. You. I will help you prepare. I will not be in the room. I do not want to be in the room. If I am in the room, you will not have had the conversation. You will have had a conversation with a man standing next to another man, and Daniel will never stop believing that the only reason he lost you is that another man took you. I do not want that for either of you. I want him to have to hear it from you. Alone. Emily blinked. Alone? In public. In a place you pick. With people around. With me close enough to get to you in 90 seconds if something goes wrong, but not in the room. You're going to tell him yourself. That is the part I cannot do for you. That is the part that has to be yours. She stared at him. That is, she said slowly, the opposite of what I thought you were going to say. I know. I thought you were going to tell me not to see him at all. I thought about it. And I decided that telling you not to see him at all would be making a decision for you. I've been very careful all week not to make decisions for you. I made one decision for you last night, which was getting you out of that apartment. I made it because I did not trust myself to let you sit there another hour. I apologize for that. I think it was the right decision, but it was mine, and I want to acknowledge that. I am not going to make the next one. The next one is yours. Are you mad? At what? At me. I don't know. For asking you to only do half of what you offered. No. Why not? Because if you had wanted me to do the whole thing, I would have been the man you wanted me to be, and I am trying to find out whether you want to be near the man I actually am. Those are different men. If you had asked me to send Nadia and 3 other people to have a conversation with him, I would have done it. You didn't. You asked me to do less. That is new information. It is good information. I am not mad at good information. Emily sat there. She sat there and she thought about the paperback on the nightstand and the pencil marks in the margin and the man who had bought it used for $4 on his way to see her. She thought about the sandwich in the paper bag. She thought about how he had, tonight, told her he was going to come to the hotel without asking, which had bothered her a little, and then had spent the last 20 minutes making sure that the hardest part of the whole plan would be hers to do alone. She did not know what any of it added up to. She suspected that was the point. She suspected he was a man who had lived his whole life not adding up, deliberately, so that nobody would know what his total was. Okay, she said, I'll do the conversation. Okay, where? That is your call. I have some suggestions. You don't have to take them. Suggest. Somewhere you have been before. Somewhere you are comfortable. Not your apartment. Not your studio. A coffee shop you like, in the middle of the day. Somewhere you can stand up and walk out without asking for the check. The goal is to give him the minimum possible amount of your attention and the minimum possible amount of your time. There's a place called Oster's on 9th by the studio. I know it. You know it. I walked by it yesterday. Alejandro, I was in the neighborhood. You were not in the neighborhood. I was walking, she laughed. She did not mean to. She put her hand over her face and she laughed. A real laugh. The laugh of a woman who had lost a great deal of ground and had just noticed she had not also, entirely, lost her sense of humor. You were walking, she said. You were walking by my office. I walk in a lot of places. Alejandro. I did not go in. Alejandro. I know how it sounds. Stop doing it. I will. I mean it. If we are going to... Whatever we are going to do, you have to stop. I had one man watching me from across the street. I don't need 2. His face did something. It was small. The corner of his mouth tightened and then relaxed, and for the first time all week she had the sense that she had actually landed a blow. He looked, for just that second, like a man who had been told a true thing about himself. Okay, he said. You are right. I apologize. Thank you. Oster's is fine. I'll go tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Let him sit with the phone call first. He will not be steady tomorrow. You want him on the 4th day. On the 4th day, he will either be defeated or he will be dangerous, and we will know which. And if he's dangerous, then we do it at a different place with me closer. Okay? Okay? Okay, Alejandro. Yes. Why did you buy me a used book? He looked at her. Because I had a new copy of the same book at home, and I thought about bringing it, and it felt like too much, so I went into a bookstore this afternoon, and I bought a used copy instead. I thought a used copy was less like a gift and more like sharing. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. I know. It's also the nicest. I know. Get out of my hotel room. He stood up. He moved the chair back to where he had found it. He walked to the door and he paused there with his hand on the handle and he looked back at her. Emily. Yes. I want you to know something. What? I have not had dinner with a woman in a restaurant in 7 years. Alejandro? I am telling you that because I realized sitting here that I had not told you that, and you should know it. I do not go to dinner with people. I have not gone to dinner with a woman in 7 years. The last time I did, it ended badly, and I decided it wasn't something I did anymore. I broke that on Saturday. I did not think about it when I broke it. I thought about it later. I wanted you to know. She did not know what to do with that sentence. Good night, Alejandro. Good night. He left. She sat on the bed for a long time after the door closed. Then she got up and she picked up the paperback and she got under the covers and she read the first chapter of a book about a city falling, slowly, to strangers, and she fell asleep with the light on and the book on her chest. The next day was Tuesday. On Tuesday, Daniel did not text her. That was the part that unsettled her. She had prepared herself, in the morning, for the barrage to escalate. She had prepared herself for a voicemail, or a string of accusations, or the specific kind of wounded text that Daniel was a master of, the one where he pretended to be worried for her safety in order to explain why he would not leave her alone. She had prepared for all of it. She got nothing. The phone sat quiet on her desk all day. At 11, she checked to see if it was broken. At 2, she checked again. At 4, she almost texted Jenna just to make sure the phone was working, and then she stopped herself because she was not going to text Jenna just to feel less alone. She called Jenna anyway at 6. Em. Hi. Em, are you okay? Em, where are you? I'm okay. I'm staying somewhere, not the apartment. With him. No, God, no. By myself. He got me a hotel. He got you a hotel. He got me a hotel under a different name. Jen, I'm okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said what I said on the phone the other day. I'm sorry. I was scared and I was being a jerk. You weren't being a jerk. I was. A little. A lot. I'm sorry. Jenna breathed out. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm mad at Daniel. I'm mad at this other guy. I'm not mad at you. You can be a little mad at me. Okay, a little. Are you coming home? Not tonight. When? I don't know. Maybe tomorrow. Alejandro, he says there's a thing happening today with Daniel's job. Alejandro got Daniel fired. I don't know if he got Daniel fired. He did a thing. I know how it sounds. I know, Jen. I know how it sounds. I am watching myself say it, and I know. But nobody threatened him. Alejandro didn't touch him. He didn't have him touched. He did a work thing. It's a lawyer thing. A lawyer thing. Sort of. I don't know. What? If this works, if Daniel stops, are you going to keep seeing him, this guy? Emily did not answer right away. I don't know. You know. Jen, I don't know. You know. Okay? Maybe. Please don't say anything. I wasn't going to say anything. Yes, you were. Yes, I was. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to say I love you, and I'm going to say please eat something, and I'm going to say call me tomorrow, and I'm going to tell Marcus you're alive so he stops checking his phone. Tell Marcus I said thank you. For what? For Sunday. Just tell him thank you. Okay, yeah. Be careful. I'm trying. They hung up. The phone did not ring again for the rest of the day. Daniel did not text her. He did not call. He did not appear outside any building. The silence was the loudest thing that had happened all week. On Wednesday morning at 9:02, Alejandro texted her. He's been suspended pending review. Walked out at 8:40. Personal items boxed. He is not allowed back on the premises. His work email is locked. He does not know yet why this happened to him. He will find out over the course of the day. Friday is still the plan. I'll be close, but not in the room. She read it 3 times. She sat at her desk at the studio with the morning light coming through the dusty window, and she read those 3 sentences 3 times, and she did not feel the clean triumph she had expected to feel. She felt instead a low and specific sadness, because Daniel, whatever else he was, had been a man she had once loved, and he had just lost the thing in his life that was not her, and now he had nothing left to blame but her. And a man with nothing left to blame but a woman was not, historically, a man who behaved well. She wrote back. Friday, Oster's, 2 p.m. He wrote back. Okay. That night, Wednesday night, she went back to her apartment. She went with Nadia, who walked through the rooms first, which Emily would once have found insulting and now found sensible. Nadia looked at the windows. Nadia looked at the locks. Nadia stood in the middle of Emily's living room for a full minute with her arms folded, looking at the walls. And then she said, "You should change the locks this week. Also, the door. Your door is old. Your door is the door of a building that was built in 1962. A man with a credit card could open your door. I didn't know that. You know that now. Okay. Do you want me to send someone? I can call a locksmith. Don't call a locksmith out of the phone book. I will send someone. He will come tomorrow. He will install a better door. The door will look like your door. It will not be your door. You will pay him what you would have paid a locksmith. I will not know what you paid him. Nadia. Yes. Thank you. Nadia looked at her. Her face did something, very small. It was the first time all week Nadia's face had done anything. You're welcome, she said. She left. Emily stood in her living room alone. The apartment smelled the way the apartment smelled. The couch was still the couch. The wine glass from Saturday was still on the coffee table, empty, with a dark ring at the bottom. She picked it up and she took it to the sink and she washed it. She put it in the drying rack. She stood at the sink with her hands wet and she looked out the little kitchen window at the building across the courtyard, where someone's TV was on and someone's dryer was running. And she thought, this is still mine, this room, this apartment, this sink, this life. Nobody took it. I almost gave it away, but nobody took it. The new door went in on Thursday while she was at work. When she came home Thursday night, there was a small envelope on her kitchen counter with 2 new keys in it and nothing else. She slept in her own bed that night. She slept badly, but she slept in her own bed. And she understood, even as she lay there staring at the ceiling in her own bedroom with her own pillow under her head, that the person who had given her this, the thing that looked like a normal night at home, was not the man her mother would have wanted her to be tangled with, was not the man Jenna would have picked, was not, in any sense, a safe person. He was, however, the man who had let her choose. That was the distinction she could not stop turning over. Daniel had never let her choose. Daniel had loved her, or said he had, and he had never once in 2.5 years put a decision in front of her without his thumb on the scale. Alejandro, whatever he was, had put every decision of the last 7 days in front of her clean. She had said no to half of them, and he had, every time, said okay. She did not know yet if that was love. She did not know yet if that was something love-shaped but wrong. She did not know yet if the thing he was doing was the most respectful thing a man had ever done for her or the most elaborate trap she had ever walked into. What she knew was that on Friday, at 2 o'clock, she was going to walk into a coffee shop called Oster's on 9th Street, and she was going to sit down across from a man she had once believed she would marry, and she was going to tell him, in her own voice, in her own words, without anybody standing next to her, that he was not going to see her again. And somewhere outside, close but not in the room, a man who had once hit people and who did not hit people anymore was going to be waiting, with Nadia, and with a phone, and with a plan that included her walking out the front door on her own 2 feet. She sat up in bed. She turned on the light. She reached for the paperback on her nightstand and she opened it to the place she had dog-eared, and she read for an hour until her eyes stopped tracking and the letters blurred. And when she turned out the light, the last thing she saw was the little pencil mark in the margin of a page. A small check mark. Somebody else's approval of a sentence written a long time ago about a city that had not known, that week, that it was about to fall. She slept. Friday came the way Fridays came, which was to say it did not feel different from the inside, even though she had been circling it all week the way a planet circles a sun. She woke up at 6:40 in her own bed, and she lay there for a while looking at the ceiling, and she did a thing her grandmother had taught her a long time ago, which was to try to describe out loud, to an empty room, exactly how she was feeling. Her grandmother had said that most of the damage women did to themselves came from not having the right words for what was happening in their chests. If you had the words, her grandmother had said, you had a chance. I'm scared, Emily said out loud to the ceiling. I'm also a little bored of being scared, she said. I think the bored part is why I'm going to be okay today, she said. Then she got up. She went to work. She told Carol at the coffee machine that she was going to need to leave at 1:30 for a personal thing. And Carol, who had not asked any questions all week, said, Take the afternoon, Em. You look like somebody trying to hold a cat in a pillowcase. That's very specific, Carol. I've held a lot of cats in a lot of pillowcases. Thanks. Go. She left at 1:28. She walked the 4 blocks to Oster's because walking was the only thing that would burn off the shake in her hands. Nadia was not with her. Nadia was somewhere nearby, in a way Emily had stopped trying to track. Alejandro had sent one message that morning, at 8:15, and it had said, I'll be close. You will see me if you look for me. Try not to look for me. She had read it 6 times. She was not going to look for him. She was pretty sure she was going to look for him. Oster's was a narrow coffee shop with a long counter and mismatched chairs and a dog bowl near the door that the owner kept filled for the neighborhood. There were maybe 12 tables. At 1:40, she walked in and picked the table near the window, second from the door, which was the one she had picked on purpose because it was visible from the sidewalk, and the sidewalk was visible from across the street. She ordered a tea she was not going to drink. She put her phone on the table, face up, and her bag on the chair next to her, and she waited. Daniel walked in at 1:57. He looked immediately worse than she had ever seen him. He had not shaved. He was wearing a gray sweater she had given him for his birthday 2 years ago, and the sleeves were stretched out at the cuffs, and the skin under his eyes was the color of a bruise. He looked like a man who had not slept in 4 days, which was probably accurate, and he saw her immediately, and his whole face did something complicated. Relief and anger and a flicker of something small and childlike she did not want to identify. He crossed the shop. He sat down. He did not take off his jacket. Em? Hi, Daniel? Em. I've been trying to reach you for... I know. I went by your apartment 4 times. I know. Em. His voice cracked. Em. I lost my job. I heard. A pause. His eyes narrowed. You heard. I heard, Daniel. How? It doesn't matter how. How did you hear, Em? Daniel, we're not doing that today. We're doing one thing today. I'm going to talk, and you're going to listen, and then we're going to go, and we're not going to see each other again. Em. Daniel. Em, please. Em, I am in so much trouble, Em. They are saying things that aren't true. They are pulling up old things. Caroline, that thing was 4 years ago. That was settled. That was not, they can't just, Daniel, Em, please. You stood across the street from my building 11 times. He stopped. What? 11 times in 6 weeks. The longest time was 1 hour and 40 minutes. You stood in the alcove by the dry cleaner. At night. I know about all 11. I have the dates. I have the times. I have a picture of you on the dates and times, because the dry cleaner has a camera on its awning, and nobody thought about it, but it was there the whole time. His face did a thing she would remember for a long time afterwards. It was not anger. It was not guilt. It was a particular kind of surprise. The surprise of a man who had believed himself invisible and was now being told that he had been, in fact, photographed, every time, in high enough resolution to count the stripes on his jacket. It was the face of a small boy who had been caught, and when she saw it, she felt, for a full second, very sorry for him. And then, in the second after that, she felt something colder and more useful, which was that the boy in his face was the part of him she had loved, and the man around the boy was the part that had been following her home. I wasn't... I was worried about you. No. Em, I was. After we broke up, I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't. Daniel. Em, I'm going to say some things to you. I need you to not interrupt me for 90 seconds. Can you do that? He nodded. When we met, you told me you had a dog. You did not have a dog. That was the first lie. I know about the dog because your sister told me at your cousin's wedding when she was drunk and did not know you had told me it was your dog. You told me you had a master's degree from a school you did not attend. You told me you were divorced from a woman you were still married to for 6 more months. When I caught you on the divorce, you told me you had lied because you did not want to lose me. You used that sentence. You told me that the lying was a kind of love. I believed you. I am ashamed that I believed you, but I believed you. When I finally broke up with you, I did it 3 times. The first 2 times I took you back because you cried, and because you said you would do better, and because I did not yet know that a man who needs to be forgiven that often is a man who is keeping score. The 3rd time I changed the locks and moved apartments, and I did not tell you the new address. You found it anyway. I don't know how you found it. I don't need to know. I have been told in the last week things about you that I did not know. The lawsuit 4 years ago, the pattern, the reason your sister doesn't speak to you. Daniel, I know about the reason your sister doesn't speak to you. Gus, his face went white. She did not actually know about the reason his sister did not speak to him. Alejandro had told her, on the phone, that there was a reason, and that the reason was bad, but that he did not think she needed to know the specifics, and she had agreed with him because she had not wanted to know. What she knew was that there was a reason. The bluff was a small one. She watched it land in his face, and she understood, watching it land, that Alejandro had been right. There was a reason, and Daniel had believed forever that nobody who mattered to him knew. I can explain that. I don't want you to explain it, Daniel. I don't want any more of your explanations. I have had 2.5 years of your explanations. I'm going to say the next thing, and then we are going to be done. Okay. He nodded. He was not nodding in agreement. He was nodding the way a man nodded when his body was agreeing to things his mind had not yet caught up to. You are not going to contact me again. You are not going to go to my apartment. You are not going to go to my work. You are not going to go to my mother's apartment, or to Jenna's apartment, or to Oster's, or to any restaurant you know I have eaten in. You are not going to stand across the street from any of these buildings. You are not going to send me a photograph of a place I once was with you. You're not going to text me the word hey at 11:30 at night. You're not going to appear. I am not going to hear from you again. If I do, Daniel, there are people who will make my life quieter, and they will do it without asking me. I have asked them not to. That is the only reason today is a conversation in a coffee shop and not something else. Do you understand? He stared at her. Who are these people? That's not the question you should be asking. Is it him, the guy from Gennaro's? That's also not the question you should be asking. Daniel. What did you do? His voice was shaking now. What did you do to me? My job? My whole... I have nothing, I have nothing. Daniel, you took everything from me. I didn't take anything from you, Daniel. You did it to yourself. 11 times. Across the street from my building. On work hours. Logged into your work email. That was you. That was not me. That was not him. That was you. You are ruining my life. I am leaving your life. You are ruining your life. Those are not the same thing. He put his hands on the table. His hands were shaking. She looked at them, and she thought distantly about the way Alejandro's hands had gone flat on the table at the bar, very still, in control, the whole body listening through the hands. Daniel's hands were not like that. Daniel's hands were the hands of a man who did not know where to put them, who had never known, who had been furious his whole life at not knowing. His voice got small. He tried, she could see him try, to find his old face, the face he had used on her in the last months of their relationship, the wounded boy face, the one she had almost always given in to. Please, I will do anything. I will go to therapy. I'll do the therapy. I'll do it for real this time. Daniel, you are not talking to me anymore. You are talking to the person you always talk to. She is not sitting here. I want you to look at me. He looked at her. Me. The person in this chair. Not the version you invented. Not the one you apologized to. Me. He looked at her for a long second, and something in his face gave. It was not surrender. It was not acceptance. It was a smaller thing, a brief crack, the smallest possible acknowledgement that the woman across from him was a person he did not, in fact, know very well. Then his face hardened. You always were a cold bitch, Em. It was quiet in the coffee shop. He had not raised his voice. He had said it almost softly, the way a man said a thing he had been waiting a long time to say. Emily looked at him. She had 2 years ago rehearsed 1,000 small responses to 1,000 small cruelties. She had stayed up nights in the bed they shared, practicing sentences she would never say to him because she was afraid of what would happen if she did. All those sentences were still in her. She could feel them. They lined up in her throat like small, sharp objects, ready. She did not use them. Okay, Daniel, she said. She picked up her bag. Goodbye. Goodbye, Daniel. She stood up. She walked past him. She did not look at him. She walked to the door of Oster's. She did not look back. She did not hurry. She pushed the door open and she stepped out onto 9th Street and the cool afternoon air hit her face and she kept walking and she did not turn her head. Half a block down she heard behind her the door of the coffee shop open again. She did not turn around. A hand took her elbow. It was not a hard grip. It was warm and calm. And the hand was a hand she had not yet been touched by, but which she recognized anyway, because there were only so many hands in the world that moved like that. Alejandro fell into step with her. Keep walking. Is he behind us? He's in the doorway. He won't come out. Nadia is 10 feet behind him. He sees her. He's deciding. He will not come out. Are you sure? I'm sure. They walked. He had her elbow for 3 steps, and then he let go. And she noticed he let go, and she noticed she did not immediately want him to let go. Don't turn around. I won't. At the corner we turn left. Okay. Slow down a little, not fast, normal. They turned left. They turned left onto a quieter side street with a row of townhouses and a woman pushing a stroller the other way. Halfway down the block, Alejandro glanced behind them, once, briefly, and the set of his shoulders changed, and she understood that whatever the shape of the threat had been, the shape had now decided to go home. He's going back in, he said. To the coffee shop. He's sitting down. He's going to order something. Nadia is going to stay with him. He will sit there for 40 minutes. He will not follow you. It's over. Emily stopped walking. She put her hand against the iron railing of somebody's stoop, and she bent forward and she breathed. She did not cry. She thought she was going to, and she did not. She just breathed for a full minute with her hand on the cold iron, and the woman with the stroller went by on the other side of the street and did not look at her, and a delivery cyclist rang his bell at a car, and the city did its thing, and she breathed. Alejandro stood next to her. He did not touch her. He did not talk. He waited. Okay, she said after a minute. Okay. Okay? I need a drink. Okay? Not a fancy drink. Just a drink. Okay. There's a place on 3rd I like. They have cheap beer and a jukebox nobody uses. Let's go there. They went there. The place on 3rd was called Teddy's, and on a Friday afternoon at 2:45 there were 4 people in it, 2 at the bar, and 2 playing pool in the back. They took a booth by the window. Alejandro ordered 2 beers from a waitress who looked at him with mild curiosity and then let it go, the way waitresses in neighborhood bars let things go. And when the beers came, Emily wrapped her hand around hers and took a long swallow and set the bottle down and rested her forehead on the cold green glass. I'm going to be a mess for a little bit, she said. Take your time. Alejandro? Yes. The sister thing. Yes. You didn't tell me what the thing was. No. Do I want to know? A pause. I don't think so. Okay. There is nothing you would do with the information. It would live in you and it would not help you. I would rather carry it for both of us. Okay. Are you angry I did the work? She thought about it. No, she said. I thought I might be. I thought when I sat down across from him today, I was going to feel like I'd cheated because I knew the thing and he didn't know I knew. But I don't feel that way. I feel like I feel like I went into a fight with my eyes open for once. He never let me have that before. No, he never let me have information. He managed what I knew about him the whole time. That's what men like him do. You do that too. He looked at his bottle for a second. I do, he said, in a different way, for different reasons. I am trying to do it less with you. I noticed. Have you? Yes, I have also noticed when you don't. I know. Alejandro. Yes. The bookstore. Which bookstore? Don't walk by my office anymore. I won't. I mean it. I mean it too. She drank from the beer. What happens now? She said. With Daniel. With Daniel. Daniel goes home today. He probably does not sleep well for a few nights. Early next week, the investigation at his firm closes. He is formally let go, with a small severance tied to a very strict non-disclosure. He signs it because he has no leverage and he needs the money. He moves probably within 2 months because he cannot afford his apartment. He gets another job eventually at a smaller firm in another city, making less money. He is not going to come back for you. The thing that will make him not come back for you is not fear of me. It is fear of losing everything a second time. He now believes, correctly, that there is a thing watching him that can take his job away, and he has already lost one. He will not risk the next one. That is the part I am sure of. The other part, the sister thing, the Caroline Reyes thing, none of that is my business to pursue. Other people are looking at those. They will do with them what they do. That is not for us. For us? For you. Sorry. Old habit. She watched him. It's okay to say us, Alejandro. He looked at her. You're sure? No, but I'm saying it anyway. They sat in the booth and did not say anything for a while. The waitress came by and Emily ordered a basket of fries she was going to eat a third of, and Alejandro, to her surprise, ordered a glass of water and drank it all. She had not, she realized, seen him eat a single thing all week. Can I ask you something? She said. Yes. What would it have been if I hadn't walked up to your table that night? I told you. Nothing. I would have gone home. But I don't mean that. I mean, in general, the life. What is the life if the life doesn't have a woman in a bar sitting on your lap? The life is quieter. Is it better? It is quieter. Those aren't the same. No. Alejandro. Yes. Why me? He was quiet for a long moment. Because, he said, the first time I looked at you, you were embarrassed and you were trying not to be, and you were being funny about it, even though you were scared. I had not seen someone do that in a long time. Most people, when they are scared, are only scared. Most people, when they are embarrassed, are only embarrassed. You were doing 3 things at once. I thought, that is a person who is probably too much alive for the room she is currently in. That was my first thought. Later, when we had dinner, I thought, she is someone who is going to ask me real questions and be unhappy with fake answers, and I am, for the first time in years, in the mood to be asked real questions. That was my second thought. I have not yet had a third thought big enough to bother telling you about. That's a lot of thoughts to have had about someone you'd known for 40 minutes. I know. It scares me a little. I know. I'm going to keep saying that. That's fine. I want to go home tonight. Okay. I want to go home alone. Okay. I don't want to see you tomorrow. Okay. I want to see you on Tuesday. A pause. A small, real smile. Okay. Stop saying okay. I don't know what else to say. Me neither. They did not stay long after that. She ate some of the fries. He paid the check, which she did not argue about, and then they walked out of Teddy's into the late afternoon, and he put her in a cab at the corner, and he did not ask where she was going. He did not need to. She went home. She walked up the stairs to her own apartment, and she opened the new heavy door with the new heavy key, and she stepped inside, and she stood there for a minute with her coat still on. And the apartment was exactly as she had left it that morning. She called her mother, and she did not tell her mother anything important. She called Jenna, and she told Jenna everything. Jenna cried. Emily did not cry. Jenna said, "You're going to see him again. Emily said, yes. Jenna said, okay, okay, okay. And that was the first time Jenna had said okay without fighting it, and Emily recognized the surrender for what it was, which was not approval, which was not endorsement, which was the older thing, the thing that existed between friends when one of them had decided to jump and the other one had decided to stay standing close enough to catch. Months went by. Months actually go by. That is the thing people do not tell you. In the movie version of a life, the hard thing happens and then the music swells, and the next scene is 5 years later and everyone is different. In an actual life, the hard thing happens on a Friday, and on Monday you have an email from a vendor about a proof, and on Wednesday you need to buy toilet paper, and on Saturday you go to a cousin's birthday, and 3 weeks pass before you notice that you have not thought about the hard thing since Tuesday. That is how healing actually works. It is not a mountain. It is a slow, stupid, wonderful leaking away of something that used to take up the whole room. Daniel did not come back. He moved 3 months after Oster's to a city 1,000 miles away. Emily heard about the move from Jenna, who heard about it from a mutual friend. Emily did not ask for details. Daniel did not contact her. His name stopped appearing on her phone. She did not block the number because she did not need to anymore, which she thought was its own kind of small, quiet triumph. A block was a decision you made when a man was still a weather pattern in your life. Leaving the number unblocked meant, in her own private accounting, that he had stopped being weather. She saw Alejandro on Tuesdays. It was a thing that became a thing without either of them announcing it. On the first Tuesday after Oster's, she walked into a small restaurant on 11th, and he was there, and they ate. On the Tuesday after that, they did it again, at a different restaurant. After a month, it was a Tuesday and a Friday. After 2 months, it was most nights she was not working late. He learned slowly how to cook one thing, which was a pasta with tomatoes that he had made for himself for years, and he made it for her. In her kitchen, on the 4th month, and she teased him about the fact that it was the only thing he could make. And he said, very seriously, I'm going to learn one more thing. And then the following week, he made her a chicken that was not quite cooked all the way through, and they laughed about it until she was crying. And it was, she thought afterward, the first time in her life she had laughed that hard at a man's failure. He did not walk by her office again. Not once. She checked in the early weeks with the little watchful part of herself that had learned from Daniel how to watch. She never caught him. She stopped checking. She met Nadia for lunch once, on a Saturday, because she wanted to know Nadia, because Nadia had opened the back door of her building and put her in a car on the worst night of her life, without making her feel like a rescue. Nadia ordered a salad and ate it slowly and told Emily 3 things about her own life, in a tone that suggested Emily was not going to hear a 4th thing, and Emily accepted this, and they became something that was not exactly friendship, but was something adjacent to it. The specific kind of bond that exists between women who have stood together in a hallway at night. She did not find out, ever, exactly what Alejandro did for a living. She learned pieces. She learned that he traveled sometimes, that he was gone for 3 days and then 4, that his phone did a specific thing in certain rooms where he would glance at it and then turn it face down. She learned that there were people he would not have in his house and people he would. She learned that there was a man named Vittorio who called him sometimes at 2 in the morning, and that after those calls, he would be quiet for a day, sometimes 2. She learned to not ask about those days. She learned to ask about other days. She also learned, and this was the real thing, the thing she kept coming back to, that a man can tell you the truth about who he is and still be worth loving, and that the opposite was also true, and that the trick of an adult life was not to find a man without shadows, but to find one who let you walk around his. They did not move in together for a year. When they did, she did not move into his house, which she had still only seen twice. He moved into hers. He gave up the house. He did not give up what he did for a living, which she had by that point stopped asking him to do, because she had figured out that asking him to stop would be asking him to be someone else, and she had already dated someone who was someone else. And the whole point, she had decided, was to not do that again. He kept the work. He moved the life. That was the deal they made. She did not know, even years later, whether it was the right deal. She knew it was the one they had picked. Jenna never fully warmed up to him. Jenna got used to him, which was a different thing and was probably the correct thing for a best friend to do. Marcus, on the other hand, came to like him quietly. the way Marcus liked things, and the two of them ended up, improbably, in a book club of two, where they would read one book a month, usually about something old and European, and meet for one beer to discuss it, and then go home. Emily found this hilarious. Jenna found it baffling. Marcus would not explain it. One night, 2 years after the bar on Kessler, Emily and Alejandro were sitting on her couch. It was late. It was fall again. The radiator was doing its thing. She was reading, and he was reading, and she looked up from her book and she said, "Can I ask you something that's going to be stupid?" "Okay." "What would you have done if I hadn't texted you back? After the first dinner?" He thought about it. "I would have gone back to the house. Quietly. I would have been disappointed for a few weeks. I would have told myself I had tried a thing and it had not worked. I would have gone back to not having dinner with women. I would have read probably more. I would have been, I think, a little sadder than I had been before I met you, but I would not have known exactly why." That is a very specific answer. You asked, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't done the dare?" Sometimes. And I think about the fact that you were the kind of person who would do the dare, even drunk, even scared, even knowing you would regret it. And I think that is why I sat still when you sat down, because I did not want to frighten you more than you had already frightened yourself. I think if I had reacted the way most men would have reacted, we would not be on this couch. I think about that more than I think about what you did. I think about what I did, which was nothing on purpose. She looked at him for a long time. "You know what the lesson of this is." "What?" "The lesson of this is that it is not about the bold thing that changes your life. Everybody says that. Oh, take the risk. The risk rewrites everything. That's not what happened. I took the risk. The risk was stupid. I could have walked up to a different man that night and been hurt. The risk didn't save me. What saved me was that you put your hands flat on the table and waited. Anybody could have done the dare. Only one person, in a whole city full of people, was going to react to it the way you did. The lesson isn't take the risk. The lesson is pay attention to what people do when you do the risky thing. Most of them tell you, in the first 5 seconds, exactly who they are. I had 11 times with Daniel across the street from my building, and I didn't see it because I wasn't looking. I had 15 seconds on your lap, and I saw everything, because for some reason, in those 15 seconds, I was actually looking. That's the whole thing. That's the whole lesson. Pay attention when other people show you what they are. Daniel showed me for 2.5 years, and I kept pretending I hadn't seen. You showed me in 15 seconds, and I walked back to my friend, and I was shaking because I had. He was quiet. "That is not a very romantic moral," he said. "No. I like it. I thought you would." He closed his book. He set it on the coffee table. He looked at her in the lamplight, and the gray in his eyes was the gray she had first seen in that booth, only softer now, the way a stone softens in a river over years. Yeah. Thank you for the dare. You are welcome for the dare. I would like to say one more thing." "Okay. I am not going to be a perfect person. I have not been one at any point in my life so far. And I am not going to start now just because I live in your apartment. I am going to be quiet in rooms I should not be quiet in. I'm going to be gone for days when you want me here. I'm going to carry things I will never tell you about. That is what you have. That is what is on the couch with you. I want you to know I know. And I want you to know that when you say yes every day to this, you are saying yes to that." "Alejandro?" "Yes. I know." "Okay. I've known for 2 years." "Okay." "Stop saying okay." "I don't know what else to say." "Me neither. Come here." He came over. She set her book down on top of his. She put her head on his shoulder and he put his arm around her. And they sat like that for a while with the radiator doing its thing and a siren going by somewhere on the avenue. And across the courtyard, someone's dryer was running. And the city was doing what cities did, which was to continue, patiently, whether or not the people inside it had figured out their lives yet. She thought not for the first time about her grandmother, who had married 2 bad men and who had, in her final years, told Emily something Emily had not understood at the time. Her grandmother had said, "Honey, don't marry a good man. There's no such thing. Marry a man who tells you the truth about himself and lets you decide." That's the whole trick. That's the only trick. Emily had been 24 when her grandmother had said that. She had not understood it. She had thought her grandmother was being bitter. She understood it now. She understood also that a bar dare on a Friday night was not the thing that had rewritten her life. The dare had only put her in a room. What had rewritten her life was the thing she had done, without knowing she was doing it, for 15 seconds on a stranger's lap. She had paid attention. She had seen him put his hands flat on the table. She had seen him not reach for her. She had walked away shaken, and she had thought afterwards, even through all the fear, that man did not try to take anything from me that I did not offer. And every decision after that, every text, every dinner, every night in a hotel under a name that was not hers, every Tuesday at a new restaurant, every year of this quiet, strange life, had been built on the slow, adult recognition that the thing that makes a person safe to love is not that they have no danger in them. It is that they know the difference between the danger that belongs to them and the danger they are allowed to bring into your house. Alejandro had learned the difference. She had learned that he had learned it. The rest had been patience. She closed her eyes against his shoulder. Somewhere, in a city 1,000 miles away, Daniel Vance was presumably living a life. She did not know what kind. She did not need to. He had been a long fall and a long landing, and the landing had taught her things she would not otherwise have learned. And she was not going to thank him for it, because he had not meant to teach her anything, but she was also not going to waste another hour of her life being angry at him. Anger, her grandmother had also said, was just love that hadn't figured out yet that it was over. She was done being angry. She had finally figured it out. In her apartment, the lamp made a circle of light on the rug. In the circle, 2 people read 2 books. Outside the circle, the city was loud, the way the city was always loud, and inside the circle it was quiet, because quiet was a thing they had both, in their separate ways, worked very hard to learn how to make. That was the end of it, not the clean kind of end. There was no clean kind of end. Daniel's non-disclosure was still sitting in a file somewhere. The Caroline Reyes thing was still, probably, going to surface in some court somewhere, years later, and Emily would read about it in the paper and not know what to feel. Alejandro was still, in ways she was not going to pry open, a man whose phone lit up with calls from men named Vittorio at 2 in the morning. Nothing in her life had become, because of him, safe in the way safe had meant to her before all of this. But then, she thought, safe had been a lie even before him. Safe was always a lie. Safe was the story you told yourself so you could keep from looking at the thing that was actually going on. She was done with that story. She was on a couch in an apartment she had picked, with a man who had told her every bad thing about himself before she had asked. And her door was a good door, and her locks were good locks. And her best friend, who was not entirely sure about him, was going to meet her for brunch on Sunday anyway, because love, if it was love, was a thing that adjusted. That was what she had learned above everything else. Love, real love, the adult kind, was not a fire that consumed the world around it. It was a small patient thing that learned to live next to the other small patient things that were already in the room. The radiator clanked. The city hummed. The book on her lap was about a city that had, a long time ago, fallen. She turned the page. Outside the window, the first snow of the winter began, quiet, uncertain, trying to make up its mind about whether to stay. It stayed.